Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Powers.
My mic's not turned on.
Mine is.
Why is yours on? Good and gracious Creator, as the dawn breaks on a new year, we give thanks for all we hold dear, our health, our families, our friends, and our constituents. Let us release our grudges, our anger, and our pains, for these are nothing but binding chains. Let us live each day in loving ways. Let us serve all who are in need, regardless of race, color, or creed. Let us lead the world from darkness to light, from falsehood to truth, and from wrong to right. Let us remember that we are all one, embracing all, discriminating against none. And may our year be filled with peace, prosperity, and love. Amen.
Supervisor Albrecht, adoption of this evening's agenda.
I move to adopt this evening's agenda. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Got it? Supervisor Cox seconded it. Okay. The time now is being allowed for persons to present and express opinions on a resolution or ordinance that appears on the agenda, as well as any matter over which this body has jurisdiction. If you will have 2 minutes, state your name and address, please.
Paul Eisen, 1807 Brighton Beach Road, Fox Crossing, Supervisor, District 4. I support ratification of the emergency day-by-day shelter resolution. My concern is entrusting this organization that has no demonstrated emergency operating plan for a 25-bed facility with aspirations of operating a $5.5 million facility with 50 to 60 beds year-round. When resolution number 303-032022, March 29, 2022, accepted the neighborhood improvement grant from the state of Wisconsin and the U.S. Treasury ARPA funds, it was amended for recipients whom the county executive chose to come before the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to provide an update and presentation within each 6-month period during the grant cycle. 6 months is October 1st, 2022. This reporting date is missed. So far as the warming shelter is concerned, an investigation is warranted to determine whether this organization is capable to continue to receive the neighborhood improvement grant of $3.6 million. And, by the way, I call for each of the other neighborhood improvement grant recipients, Oshkosh Kids Foundation, Solutions Recovery Center, Covey, Habitat for Humanity Oshkosh, and others, to come before the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to provide an update and presentation that is overdue. This county board must exercise due diligence with public funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else at this time that wishes to address the board? Anyone else wish to address the board? Anyone else? Not seeing any, we'll consider that part closed. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to report on the Winnebago County Parks Department in conjunction with the Oshkosh Recreation Department and the Fusion Footwear Company here in Oshkosh have come up with a new program. It's called 920 Bagel, Be Active, Go Outside, where every single month there will be a different themed activity to get people to spend 920 hours outside with activity. Activities will range from 1 month they're going to have a school picnic to another month a field activity. The activity for this month is going to be, I talked about last month, is going to be January 20th through the 22nd, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's going to be a cross-country ski/snowshoe and hike event. It's going to be held at night on Friday and Saturday of that weekend, 6 to 8 p.m., and on Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. There's limited equipment that will be available, and there's also going to be some hot chocolate going to be served there. So in every different month, there's going to be a different event. We don't know when the exact date that will be, but look for that. So it's called 920 Bagel Program. You can contact the Parks Department for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this was something that I brought up to Judicial Public Safety Committee a couple of meetings ago, and I just wanted to provide an update to the county board as well in regards to this. As you can see, if you've received the Wisconsin Counties magazine regarding improving our mental health crisis and response system, they did mention in one of their articles that the city of Appleton has a embedded social worker and clinical therapist with their law enforcement to respond to calls for service that may regard to those with that are having a mental health crisis or having an episode. The city of Oshkosh is also doing that as well. And that's co-funded with Winnebago County by, I believe, about $25,000 with the city of Oshkosh. And this is something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on and keeping tabs on. I did have some communications with Dr. Topol yesterday about this to get some updates in regards to how that went. And he did meet with Oshkosh PD before the holidays, and their data is pretty mixed right now, and so they're in the process of separating, which calls were needed an embedded social worker and which calls didn't, and they're going to get some more data on that, and they should be able to get that information at the end of the month. And then at that point, they're going to be taking a look at efficiencies and inefficiencies, what they can do better. And at that point in 2024, we'll probably be looking at doing something similar for Winnebago County as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last day for turning in your per diem and mileage for the year 2022 is this coming Friday, January 6th. At the last meeting, there were 2 or 3 supervisors who had not taken a paycheck for their work. If you all have decided you don't want to take the money, you don't want it, if you'd be willing to consider turning in your hours and your mileage and donating it to the scholarship fund. That's my only request. Thank you very much.
I just want to add to that, they can do that, but it'll have to be in their name, and they'll have to take it out of their pocket to give it to them. It can't just be written out to them, just so you realize that. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone? Okay, County Board Chairman, I do not have a lot tonight because we have other things to be covered. I'm not sure, is Brian Stafford on? He might be late. He said he'd be coming. Jim Weiss, is he on? Jim Weiss is on. He's sick, but he's here. Rebecca Nichols, she wasn't going to be able to be here, so she is excused. Nate Gusterson, he's excused. And Vice Chairman Fari is on, I see, so them are the ones that are there. I will be presenting a resolution right shortly. I'm not going to go into a lot of it, as I will then, but I just want to let you know at that time, because I was going to let Vice Chairman Fari go ahead and introduce it tonight, but being that he's not here, I'll be stepping away, and our clerk-to-be will be getting her first chance up here at this microphone, so don't be hollering at her or throwing paper wad or anything like that at her right away, so. Otherwise, I really don't have anything other than I wish you all a Happy New Year, and hopefully things will keep on going as well as they have been, and best of health to all of you. So we'll continue on. And Julie, if you would like to come up, please. I think I got it on. I usually don't do this, but when I go ahead and make this resolution, after I do it and hopefully get a second on it, I might also go ahead and ask the county executive to come up for some explanation on it possibly. We'll see how it goes. I would like to make a motion for the resolution number 155012023 for ratifying a proclamation of a county emergency due to extreme winter weather and unplanned staffing shortage and temporary closing day by day warming shelter. You have a
Okay, the
second?
motion has been made and seconded, and now we're ready for discussion, and I have,
I would like to. Can I
oh,
explain mine?
go ahead.
The reason that it's just being brought in now, and this is why I said maybe we'd have the county exec come up and explain it a little bit why, is that this here was brought in last time, but we did not do it, should I say properly, or can I throw it at the county executive or whatever? Anyways, it should have been done by the board. The county executive could bring it in and this and that, but a motion has to be made and seconded to allow this by the board. So after digging into things and finding all this out, yes, we're kind of got the horse got in front of the cart, as you want to say, or whatever, but this is why we're bringing it in. So we can go ahead and ask questions on that, but some of them I might not totally, but between the corporate counsel and myself and the county executive, hopefully we can clear some of this up to make it proper. Guess that's my time.
All right, the Supervisor Defferding?
Thank you. I did have a couple questions in regards to this. I guess first off, did Day by Day Warming Shelter provide consent for this?
All right, we're good. Clarify, consent for what exactly?
Consent for this, for taking over staffing for their shelter.
Well, it started off, we found out that they were closing, I found out at 5:40 on Monday night at the holiday board party. And then it was the next day, city officials and county officials, we called an emergency meeting, 9 o'clock the next day to figure out what the plan was. The plan was that we were going to open up a shelter, we just didn't know where. Wednesday morning, we did get their consent to use their facility. So I guess short answer is yes.
Okay, and explain to me a little bit more regarding, if I recall correctly from communications with you, you said that through squatters' rights you were able to get that. You were able to do that. Is that correct?
Well, once we were there, we figured it was the best place to be. That's where these guests were the most comfortable. So we were uncertain if they were going to allow us to stay there, which they agreed to originally for just through the storm. And then they did agree that it was the best place for them. We worked out that they could still do their training when it became a night-only shelter. They could do their training in the day, and we have since come to the agreement. But had we been asked to leave, I think for this population, we probably would have stayed.
Okay, what kind of, was there any pushback at all from Day by Day Warming Shelter in regards to this?
Well, I think it was very emotional in the beginning. It was an emotional decision for them. It was an emotional decision for everybody. So after the motions settled down, I think it would be safe to say that it's been a pretty good relationship. And I actually would like to defer to Renee, who was our incident commander on this. Renee is the deputy director of human services, who pretty much ran this operation for us. And how do you feel that relationship has been?
So, hello. So yeah, we've been collaborating pretty well with Day by Day. Molly is the director there, and we needed their help. Obviously, Human Services, we've never run an emergency shelter before. I don't know a thing about that. So with basically 24 hours notice to get over there and get running, we needed some information from them. And they certainly supplied it and opened their doors and showed us where things were and helped us as best they could.
Okay, that's a relief to know. That's good to know. I guess for me in particular, I'm just concerned with this precedent that through an emergency declaration we could just simply kind of take over staffing for any private nonprofit company, or organization, I should say. But it sounds like they've been cooperative.
Yes.
Okay, all right, and I guess the other question is why was there no notice before that they were short on staffing?
You want to take that one?
Yep, I'll take this one. That's been a concern of ours as well. In fact, November 16th, there was a Rotary meeting where our Director of Human Services, Bill Topol, and our Director of Public Health, Doug Gearin, and my staff were in a meeting, and offers of if you ever need anything were made, and nothing came back. One of the things that we're looking at doing right now is doing an intergovernmental task force, so we can get people from the state, from the city, from our organizations to meet with them on a current basis to keep our finger on the pulse, to help them with any training or any situations that they might have come up, to make sure that we increase the communication. I agree, the last minute notification or the not knowing that they were in trouble is unacceptable for me.
Thank you. I think that obviously that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. I mean, as Supervisor Eisen brought up earlier, we provided them with the neighborhood grant. I begrudgingly voted for that. And now we find out that they had a lack of staffing issue right during not just simply the holidays but during a winter storm. So that's now partly our responsibility too going forward, and that's something I'd like to get some more answers on, and maybe at the very least have that ready so that we can avoid that problem going forward in the next few years.
Thank you. Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You addressed some of the concerns that I had, so did Supervisor Differding and Eisen. Thank you, Renee, for stepping forward to do that on such a short notice. That is absolutely commendable. My question is just merely a procedural question for John and Mary Ann. I understand that this came up very suddenly. I understand. Here's my concern. We did have a board meeting that Tuesday where you announced that this was going to be done. I have zero problem voting for funding for what you did. Zero problem at all. My question for you and Mary Ann is, could this have been done any differently at that board meeting, given that I understand it was not an agenda item? Is this the only way that we can do this? Because we're now voting for funding after it's been done.
I mean, I would say it was the suddenness of this whole thing. We didn't know if we could do this. We were prepared to try to operate a shelter at the Expo Center and bus people back and forth. We were working on collaboration with the city and how do we get city buses to go back and forth. We had hesitations on what if the bus gets stuck in the blizzard? Is this something we can actually do? So by the time we finally made a decision that, yep, we're going to do this, we think we can do this, Because just saying we can doesn't make it happen. We had to make sure that we had all our logistics figured out. We had to make sure that we had 100+ shifts that were signed up for. We had to make sure we could do it before we could write a resolution. So by the time those decisions were made, by the time we put our heads together, by the time we got confirmation from Oshkosh Police Department that they would dedicate 2 law enforcement officers to sit there with us overnight because our staff is not trained to handle, to deal with this population, that didn't happen until probably 4-ish?
I was going to say 4 or 4:30.
Like 4 or 4:30 when we did it. So I think maybe if we had another 2 hours, we probably could have slapped a resolution in time. But I didn't want to lock our people into it or tell the citizens of Winnebago County that we're going to do something that we can't pull off. It's really easy for me as the county executive, hey, I need you guys to run a shelter. Good luck. But that would be poor leadership. I needed to make sure that we heard from them that they could do it, that we had enough staff to cover it, that Oshkosh Police Department was going to cover their people, that the city of Oshkosh would figure out if they could do buses or not. I needed more time to negotiate with the day-by-day so we could be willing partners to go into their location, which was going to be the best place for these people to weather the storm. So outside of that, if we had another 2 hours, we may have been able to do this for that board meeting. But outside of that, Mary Ann, I would pose to you executive powers that there were no laws broken here.
Just to sort of add to what County Executive Damel indicated, while he may have heard about this for the first thing on Monday night at the county board party, I can tell you the following day, my understanding was he and his staff was working with the city to try to get this issue resolved. And when it became clear that there was only one way to go forward, I got a call from him probably around 4-ish to see what we could do. And the statute is clear. 323.14.4b specifically says that if, because of emergency conditions, the governing body is unable to meet promptly, the chief executive officer shall exercise by proclamation all powers that appear necessary and expedient, but obviously they're subject to ratification. So, given the fact that there was an agenda, and this was probably not done, I mean, I first heard about it probably around 4 o'clock, and we were working on it. There was no way we could get this on the agenda well before, 5 o'clock. And again, with open meetings, yes, you can amend it in agenda if there's an adverse financial effect. But again, you need to have certain time frames, and the minimum time frame would be an hour, and there was no way we could get that done by then. So yes, the proper procedures were followed. This was the first board meeting. It's approximately 2 weeks after the fact, and so we are coming to the board to ask for ratification.
Yeah, thank you. I just, I have zero problem with, that was my only concern, was that we did it correctly. I have zero, like I said, I'm voting for this. No problem acquiring funds, transferring funds, asking for funds for something like this. Just wanted to make sure that it was done right, because mopping up milk after it's spilt is not a precedent I think we should have. Thank you.
Correct.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple questions I have. One, it says in the resolution there's no financial obligation or maybe that's the right wording. What do you think this will cost us eventually? Because there is a cost to this.
What we mean by that is we believe there's enough budget or enough money in the budget from Human Services to cover what we have. That being said, if we choose to ratify this tonight, I believe we'll be able to get some reimbursement through the state, especially for the snow emergency portion. All in all, I believe this is going to be less than $125,000, and that is if you grant us the ability to go through February 28th to give them the training, the support to lift their organization up, as I believe we need to do. But I mean, that's a lot less than a boathouse.
My next question kind of goes to what Supervisor Eisen said in his statement before, what is the plan? I mean, I think the resolution says this calls for to go through February 28th. What's the plan after February 28th? Because we all live in Wisconsin, and, you know, March and April or March could be just as cold as February, I mean, as December as was last week. So what is the plan after February 28th?
The plan is January 9th, the day by day, according to their news release, their press release, that they take back over operations on January 9th. And that we wanted ability until February 28th to get together a task force to give them the kind of training they need to avoid the situations they walked to in the first place. To be able to lift them up and to help them make the tough decisions they're going to have to make. I mean, Supervisor Eisen, you're correct. There needs to be a plan in place here. I remember last Thanksgiving, we helped them out when the entire staff got COVID. 13 months later, we still didn't have a plan in place. So I guess this allows us to develop that plan. It allows us to bring in human services and health to help them get the training they need so they don't get in this situation. And I don't believe, as of this point looking at it, I don't believe we're going to need a budget transfer yet. But who knows?
My last question is, day by day, they have a finite number they can serve. Am I correct every night?
Can you say that again?
They have a certain number they can serve, or hours to serve every night, right?
Correct.
So how are we handling, or if we are handling, you know, I'm sure that are homeless in other parts of the county other than the city of Oshkosh, Neenah, Manassas, whatever. How are we helping those areas and those people in those areas? Are we doing anything, maybe, I'll say special or different, to reach out to those people and say, hey, you know, you're homeless in those communities, you need a place until February 20th or whatever, we'll bring you down here. Are we doing that, man?
Sure. Our sheriff actually did a fantastic job of that. He reached out to all the law enforcement agencies in our county to make sure that the door was open for them as well. This is a county shelter. Our sheriff actually went out and checked on a lady that we had reports of that was trying to weather the storm in a bus stop. So yes, this is for the entire county. And as far as I'm concerned, whether you're in Winnebago or not, if you're going to freeze to death, if you're out there, we got you.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr.
Supervisor Bender.
I'd just like to commend the county exec and the staff for what they did, stepping up in such short notice. I know we have an animal shelter. If we see a stray dog or animal, we take them to the animal shelter. These people need to have a place to go 365 days a year, and we're responsible for that. So in the future, if they happen to basically have to close the door again, we have to be ready to step up and help again. People have to have a place to go. They're not like trash. You don't throw them away. We have to work and we have to solve the solution. And it may take county dollars to run that day-by-day warming shelter at times. We don't shut the door because there's no volunteers. We figure a way to make it work. So I commend you for what you did, and I hope that we can continue in the future to make sure they always have a place to go. If there's an animal, we find it, we take it to the main shelter. And if there's a human out there that needs our help, there's got to be a place that we can take them. They don't deserve to sit outside with 40 or 50 mile an hour winds, below zero, and we're going to leave them freeze to death. I mean, what are we if we can't take care of the people that need our help?
I'd like Renee to talk about the staffing on that, where the credit should go.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I just wanted to give a plug to not only human services staff, but all county staff. I want you all to know with this very short notice how our folks, your folks, our county folks, they stepped up. So, you know, when you asked John about Tuesday night and that board meeting, on Wednesday morning, we were still trying to figure out how we were going to staff this. And we needed staff. Those doors opened at 6 p.m. Wednesday night. So we were still figuring out, you know, pay and the holidays. It was we were coming up on Christmas and the storm and all of it, still figuring that out Wednesday morning. So our decision was to send, Ethan Hollenberger sent out an email around, I want to say 10:30, 11 o'clock a.m. Wednesday morning. Countywide, it was basically all hands on deck. We did the best we could to try to explain what the homeless shelter was, try to give some idea of this is what you would be doing if you did decide to go over there. And we're paying people, of course. There was some discussion of What would we do if we had to mandate staff? I've never been a part of that process where you actually have to call someone on a holiday and say, guess what, you're gonna go work someplace else today. That is part of our role in emergency management. I've just not been through that process myself. And these guys know I was like, please don't make me do that to staff on a holiday weekend. And by, let's say that email went out around 11 o'clock. I want to say by 1 o'clock, those shifts were full through Christmas weekend. So please know, and countywide too. I mean, we had folks who were like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I will go on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve or whatever it was. And our initial decision was not to stay open through 24 hours through the holiday weekend, because initial reports were the storm, at least the warning, was supposed to end early Saturday morning, I believe. But then as at least I was very much in tune to Oshkosh weather all weekend. As we were watching the weather, looking out the window going, this isn't gonna end anytime soon. And Eric Rasmussen, our emergency director, was sending reports about the weather. And so we quickly, meaning the leadership team, quickly got together and said, can we staff this 24 hours through the weekend? Which meant Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And that happened Friday. And we had people on backup, lots of phone calls, hey, you signed up to be backup, and we made it happen. So just to plug, anybody out there listening staff-wise, this is Winnebago County, so thank you for that.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank you, John and Renee and Dr. Topol and everybody who stepped up. The one question I have, and I will be supporting this, is how confident are you in this date that the warming shelter will have enough people trained so that they can fully, I know that the day for them to fully resume operations on their end is the 9th when they'll inherit that, but how confident are you that the 28th of February is a good time where we'll let go? Is that something that the task force, the intergovernmental task force, is going to come to a conclusion of? I guess what I'm saying is, how confident are you in the strategy?
I would say 90%. 90%. I think there definitely has to be some changes there. There was some communications breakdown. I never want to get to the point where I'm shocked by that again. To Supervisor Defferding's point, if we'd have had a heads up on this, we could have just simply supplemented county staff to work side by side for them, and there wouldn't have had to, we wouldn't have had to figure out how to run a shelter as it is. But I think the talks have been getting more positive. I think the collaboration is really coming along. I think the training is about to commence. We have a whole long list of suggestions. We've had some rock stars come in there and help take a look at it. But it's hard for nonprofits, because you got to remember the only person that pays less than government is nonprofit, right? Anybody heard that? So that's hard. It's hard for them to bring in staff that's going to be an operations director of a homeless shelter for $38,000 a year, whatever it is. I mean, that takes a lot of commitment to do it. But I'm still confident that we're gonna get it done.
And then the last question I have is in regards to kind of dovetailing off what Supervisor Norton said, other homeless shelters and issues in other parts of the county. Could we possibly, and I don't know if you've discussed this, kind of reach out to these other shelters in other parts of the county and say, hey, in case you may have a situation like Day by Day, here is some contingencies that you can implement so you don't catch government off guard?
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Communication, collaboration. We have a supervisor here that works for a homeless shelter just north of us that has done this for quite some time. You have to combine your resources, and you get together to facilitate trainings together, and you bounce ideas off each other, and you figure out what's the best approach for this population. And right now it's hard. I mean, it's especially hard right now with the amount of just everything in the world. I don't think any of us here have had a really solid mental health the last 3 years, correct? I mean, it's been rough. The world went through a traumatic experience in the last 3 years. And I can't imagine these people are doing any better. But you're right. That's what the task force, I hope, accomplished. So they are aware of the resources, that they're not alone, that they have a city, a county, and a state, and possibly federal funding out there. Then that you have to have your finger on the pulse, and that's what we're hoping to show them.
Thank you. I know generally speaking, I'd be a little bit nervous about staffing and dipping into nonprofits, but I think this is necessary, and I appreciate all the work you've done on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, the 303 was amended. The 303 resolution that was passed in a special session where we called everybody to come in. Those people, there are 13 of them that are no longer with us here. That special session, we managed to put an amendment on the bottom of this for each one of the entities, including Human Services and Day by Day, to give us a presentation of how they are doing, how they're set up, what they need, once every 6 months. That 6 months came due in October. If they would have been able to have made some kind of a presentation, do you not think that they would have looked into how they were staffed and maybe, preempted this whole thing?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that on that particular point that you're asking, even my discussions with Molly in mid-November didn't really indicate to me that they were struggling at that time. Now, after that point, apparently things happened in their organization. They lost some key staff, and that presented a problem at that time. So you're asking about, would we have not have known something back in October? I don't think we would have, because I don't think they would have lost those key people yet. And as far as we would know, they would be able to handle what was going to come their way. But they had a number of issues happen at Thanksgiving and leading up to the latter part of December that my perception was they were trying to handle it. They were trying to come up with solutions internally. I think if there was an error, it was in not talking to us sooner about what we could do to help them. Because we had done that the year prior when they had a COVID emergency and they lost all their staff. We were able to put people up in motels. And we're able to do that again with some of the folks there. So I'm trying to answer your question specifically. Would we have known it in October? No.
Dr. Topol, we have several entities on this resolution that accepted the neighborhood improvement grant for $10 million. It became their responsibility to keep us informed every 6 months. Now, somewhere along the line, somebody is not being fully.
Can I just, one more thing. On that point, my understanding is, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, but none of these entities, including the county, received any federal dollars through October. So there wasn't, there was planning going on by entities about what they were going to do with the money, but they didn't receive any of the money even going into October. I don't know if they've gotten it yet. We went ahead as a county department because we thought that the homeless eviction issue was so great that we would start recruiting a little bit early, banking on the money coming in. We were fortunate that we could do that with some of our project funds. So we actually got a little bit of a head start over the other entities. But as far as I know, in October, none of these entities have received any dollars at all. So what report would they give you is, we've been planning on what we're doing, but we haven't really done anything yet.
Well, and regarding the payment, first of all, actually, none of those entities have received a nickel yet. Winnebago County has not received any money yet. We've had tremendous difficulty negotiating and executing contracts, or the contract for the grant agreement with the state. So the contract between Winnebago County and the state was not completed because of various changes of position by the state until it was near the end of November of 2022. So just over a month ago. So we did not have any contracts in place until approximately the end of November. A draw request has now been submitted twice because of changing requirements by the state. And we haven't received any money yet. So the entities have been, in several cases, spending money and doing it on their own through private financing sources, but we haven't been able to support them with the money from the state yet at all because we haven't received it. And I think that does impact the question about presentations by the subrecipients. Since we did not have any contracts in place till the end of November, we're really still in that first 6-month period. You know, it's every 6 months of the contract period. So the 6 months wouldn't be up until April. So we do plan to have them come in during that 6-month period to make the presentations. It hasn't been discussed yet in terms of scheduling or dates, but that's on the horizon. We're aware that that's something the board wants to see.
I can't be pleased with an answer. That particular time period, 6 months after we passed this, and we went to a special session to pass it, 6 months after that time, somebody should have stepped up and said, look, board, we
Time's up.
haven't got the money moving.
Supervisor Cox, your time is up.
I'll take responsibility for that.
Supervisor Albrecht.
I have a question for the Corporation Council. My question is, could he have had a supervisor suspend the rules in the beginning and eliminate all this problem? We can suspend the rules on most items, on all items, I believe. Couldn't he have had the supervisor ask Doug or David to suspend the rules and then did what he wanted to do and still could have done it?
You're talking about the December 20th meeting. Is that what you're talking? Again, the problem was the timing,
Yeah, but
because,
suspend the rules.
but again, we want to make sure there's no issue with open meetings violations and with the agenda, since there was nothing done within an hour of that meeting that was going to start at 6 o'clock,
Okay.
you would have run into problems.
I have no problem with what was done. I'm
No,
just saying that I would have thought that he could have suspended the rules.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the only issue would have been I would have no idea what to ask for on Tuesday. I wouldn't know. I mean, at that point, we didn't know where we were. We didn't know if we were busing people. So I wouldn't have had any idea what to ask for or what a resolution would have looked like.
Is he talking about this or something else?
They were looking at rules on this.
No whispering.
So, Director Collar just pointed out that actually there's a 2-hour requirement, minimum notice requirement. So if I said an hour, I misspoke. It's a 2-hour. So given the fact that I first really heard about this and the dynamics at 4 o'clock, although I will say John mentioned this to me on Monday night, but again, the county executive was in meetings most of Tuesday trying to see where things stood. I didn't hear anything regarding any of the specifics until about 4 o'clock that Tuesday, 2 hours before the board meeting.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I may be muddying the water here, but in speaking with Chairman Egan earlier today, he said this would be the agenda part where I could bring this up. There are 3.5 neighborhoods closed at Parkview. And is it possible we could house the homeless population in those 3.5 neighborhoods? And while I'm bringing up Parkview, I heard from a constituent this week, or just this week, that morale is pretty low there. There's an employee who's leaving in the next 2 weeks who has 41 years under her belt, and she just can't take it anymore. The funding involved in so-called renting space at Parkview for the homeless people in those 3.5 neighborhoods that are closed, could possibly, the funding could be transferred into some of Parkview's budget. We granted pay increases to staff with direct patient care, but I heard from a staff member this didn't cover because while she doesn't have direct patient care, she is tasked with directly cleaning up patient urine, feces, and vomit. And there's no pay increase on this, and she's doing the job of at least 2 people because they're so low. They're so low in staffing. They're underpaid out at Parkview.
We have to
and
just
therefore
stick
they're-
to the subject, please, Supervisor.
You're the one who told me to bring it up here.
I know, but you're going on into a lot more than what the subject is.
Okay.
Okay, I'll adjust the Parkview, why we couldn't use Parkview, a couple reasons. I mean, we had a pot open at the jail, couldn't use that either. Statute wouldn't allow it. We asked Day by Day to put up as many as their people as they thought that they could in a hotel, and I believe that was 14, 16 original, is that including the ones that we put up too? So we have 3. You have to understand the challenge, you have to understand the population. You can't just give them a closed door to go behind. There's a reason you need sight lines. We didn't want to put a whole bunch of people in a hotel that are continue to use, if that's what they're going to do, and trash a hotel. It's the same thing with Parkview, and it's a warm bed and a safe place for them to sleep is what we're looking for. So that was never going to be an option for us. It was either where the Day by Day currently is at, or it was the expo, because you need those clear lines of vision with this population. I hope that answers your question.
So you're saying that population that is being housed in the Day by Day warming shelter are in fact destructive and using drugs? Is that what you're saying?
They could be.
You
Or the behavioral health, there's a whole bunch of things that I am not qualified to label. I do know that it can be a challenging population, and sometimes it needs a little bit of that oversight. And I would ask Renee, Parkview was never an option for us, correct? Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I will right after this next one. Supervisor Eisen, and then it'll be Supervisor
Well,
Gabbard.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support ratification of the emergency day-by-day shelter resolution. County Executive Domel, I want to hear from you how you can deal with this homeless shelter at arm's length with obligation to your county citizens, staff, and county board when you have served on the day-by-day warming shelter board of directors, documented in the Federal 990 return for June 2021. Please share with us how you've severed that relationship and when.
I resigned off the board from the Day by Day the day I won my election. I also resigned off the Chamber of Commerce the day I won my election. I also resigned off the Oshkosh Kids Foundation board the day I won my election. I also resigned off of Heroes of Oshkosh, which isn't an entity that I didn't have to do it, but I just took myself off the page because I felt it was the right thing to do. This is about the mission for me. So I can guarantee you that I am not looking at this through rose-colored glasses. And I agree with you, there is work to be done. There is work to be done, and there's some support to be had and some tough conversations to had. And I think on the outside of this, at the end of this, we're going to come away with a stronger, better organization that is ready to operate the new shelter, because the grant agreement that we signed with them on the $3.5 million is not free money. It is very specific in that grant agreement that we signed with the state that they have to continue operations. There is all kinds of things in there that are going to have to be fixed moving forward. And honestly, I'm happy it happened now under these circumstances than when we have 50 or 60 people in there. Now we have a good grasp on it. Now we have people in human services that can say they have worked in a homeless shelter before. Now we have some real built-in experience, and I think we're better off, no matter how tragic or extenuating the circumstances are that got us here. I believe we have exponential growth in the last week and a half, and I'm confident that that'll be going forward. And my past actions on their board or being on their board will weigh no differently with how I deal with them in the future.
Supervisor Gabbert.
Several things. I think we still could have had a presentation by the entities on the progress of their construction. Kids Foundation, Tiny Villages, would have been nice to hear instead of driving by there and seeing what's going on. And the day-by-day shelter is being built. I don't think we were asking about their operations. We were just asking, come back in 6 months and tell us how the projects are going that you're going to be funded for. And I was aware that the funding hadn't come because we had some sticking points. So we weren't asking for them to tell us anything out of the ordinary. Point to be had. I understand today that I learned from a shelter in town here, I'll call it a shelter and not give the name, that you called them, which I was really appreciative of, and you were able to place some people at that shelter. That shelter has rules, lots of rules, but they took in the people they could help. So thank you for calling them, and they're taking care of those people, and those people are being fed and sheltered. You had also told me that 14 people or entities, women, men, whatever, had been put in motels, so I was thankful about that. And I was not in favor of the 10.3. I voted for it, but I was not in favor of it because I kept asking, what's the end game? So I won't get into that right now. We have no choice here because you don't want anybody to freeze to death. But the community is looking at this, they're aware of this grant, and they're going, oh my gosh, one of those recipients is falling apart. The facility has fallen apart. It had to close. What are they going to do when they get 50 to 75 people? Are they going to be able to handle it? You sound very convincing tonight that you're on the right track with this, so I'm going to cross my fingers and hope this works, because they're out there going, it's going to fail too. Trying to say it's not going to fail, so just keep involved and keep doing what you're doing. I feel bad that we had an executive order and now we sit here tonight, it looks like we don't know what we're doing. To the community out there that are taxpayers that are going, what is going on? You took it over and now you're having a resolution to prolong it another 2 months, 6 weeks, 8 weeks? I said, because things are still misshapen. I think the community didn't know either that there was an issue over there with drugs, okay? Staff probably were worried about that. Things were out of control. Happens. That's the clientele we have. But you still don't want them to freeze to death. That's just not what we're about here in this county or in America. So I will vote for this tonight with the idea that I can trust you and I can trust Human Services to continue to do the best that they have done with volunteers, paid staff, and make this shelter whole again so that when the new building is done in April, first part of May, we have a 24/7 shelter that got $3.5 million through this neighborhood grant, and they're up and running and they will be successful. Because these are all nonprofits that are benefiting from this grant. So we want to protect them. But rules are not a bad thing. If you get shelter and you get food, abide by the rules. So, thank you for what you've done. Hopefully this will all work out.
Yeah, I just want to take full responsibility again. I am the reason that they haven't been doing the updates, so I will take that completely. We were unsure if we were going to get these grant agreements to actually work for us to give them the money. It is very hard for government to give a nonprofit organization money. There are a whole bunch of hoops you got to jump through. We wanted to make sure that that was going to be done first. And as Director Collard said, we finally got those grant agreements. We had to do 2 separate draw requests because they changed the rules on us. So that's on me. I will take full responsibility. They haven't done reporting because I didn't want them to take time to come do reporting until we could be sure we get them their money. I admit it, that's a mistake on my end. We do have plenty of rules with them going forward. I think I have my own concerns with their operating budget. I'm not sure if it's strong enough. But then again, we don't know if they've gone after all the grants they can. We don't know if they're fully utilizing HUD monies. We don't know if there's other sources of fundings, revenue to help come in to get the staff up to full speed. I do know that they did have a couple last-minute staff shortages that was a heart attack and some other health issues that happened real suddenly the week before. But I can tell you that we will have our finger on the pulse, and we will improve that relationship so we never get shocked again.
Thank you.
Supervisor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you did, I'm 100% behind and for the resolution. The only thing that comes to my mind now is being business, okay? The scenario that some place has been running for a while, getting grants, getting extra money for different things to function, all of a sudden decides in the coldest time of the year that we're going to close for 2 weeks. From what I hear, a lot of people didn't even know that was happening, and I'm sure they have an executive board and they have a regular board, and all of a sudden someone makes a decision, and of course the public now are out there wondering, what is it, they short people? Is there some drugs? Do they have the right people? What happened, you know? And then, of course, they automatically tag us with the $3 million we gave them. So my concerns is all these small projects that we gave the money to, I sure hope they didn't get their loans and how they do all this, counting on our money first to do it. Because I know something in town was like that, where somebody built a place and counted on money that never was there, and when it was off 4 years later, they didn't have it. So they get in trouble like that. So now my question for you is, of all the people that are there that are existing now, and they're hiring some more, do you think they're the right people? Are they trained right? Because I know when you run something like this, you got to have some security, you got to have some health people that know wellness, you got to know a lot of stuff. And from what I see in some pictures, there's a lot of young people working there that just got hired. I'm just concerned, you know, what they're doing, and are they right people? And of course, now are we going to have to train the right people because they never had the right people, which is another scary thing. And the last question I'd have is, you told us what the county did. What did the city do to help us out? I heard about all the county, but I didn't know what the city had done. So that's my question. Thank you.
I'll start with the second part. The city gave us 2 officers that night to make sure that our staff was safe, to help us with some of the cultural issues that were going on. They were willing to set us up some bus transportation back and forth to the Expo Center from that site. Both Chief Smith and Chief Stanley were at the table with us on what we need. EMTs were prepared to be there at a second's notice. So I think that was sufficient. That was good. Next part's not our business. I mean, it's government. It's not our job to tell them if they have the right people or not. It's our job to give them the support if they ask for it. It's our job to look at the policies that are right. It's our job to, decide whether they're going to give them $3.5 million. And we got to have faith in them to do the right thing, and we have to have faith in them to pick themselves up. Just much like people at home have faith in us to do our jobs right. They have a decision on whether we continue to work our jobs, correct? Government does not have the say whether we can remove a board or remove an executive director, and that's not our call. So I'm going to refrain from asking that, but I'm going to offer them any support that they need or decisions they make, I will back. Thank you.
Supervisor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say, Mr. Damel, you're probably the only person in this room who's had more time invested in this than I have. Because when we first met, we were workshopping this when I was on the Oshkosh City Plan Commission, 2 years ago? A little over 2 years ago? And I remember how excited we were as a city to have something like this that would be in our neighborhoods, and we understood because we were also working on the mini homes, and we were setting the path to try to get these people back into what we call normal society, get them some pride in their life. And this thing was a gut punch, and I know it had to be even worse for you, because I was sitting there questioning everything I thought about this the whole way through the last couple of years. And sitting here hearing today from you, from Dr. Tobel, from Beck, all of you, Renee, all of you, the fact that you, in such a short time, had not only the county staff rally behind you, but you've set things in motion, you've set things in place so that way we're going to set them up to succeed. And it's not going to break the bank as far as we're concerned. And that one, like I said, I came into this tonight and I was gut punched. And hearing from all of you and hearing what's going on, it's amazing. And I think it should be an inspiration to other counties around the state on how to take care of those who can't take care of themselves. So I will definitely be ratifying this. Thank you.
Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Okay, my only, actually it's a question and an answer. I believe it's a never-ending problem. So here after the February 28th, how can we make sure that, or as a county and Winnebago Board County Supervisors, that do we have a backup plan so something like this doesn't happen again?
Well, that's where the training comes in on how to deal with. That's where the new shelter will come in. I mean, that's going to be a solution in and of itself because the sight lines are clean. I mean, there's a basement of an old church. There's nooks and crannies everywhere. There's hiding places. It's not clear lines of vision. It's really hard to keep an eye over everybody. They're going to be in a nice, wide open, big space. That's not going to have windows that they can open up and sneak stuff in from the outside anymore. Those are things of the past. So I do believe that the new space is actually it was designed to be a homeless shelter. Right now, they're designed in a place that was supposed to be a lunchroom for a school. I mean, that's what it is. They're in the basement of a church. I'm grateful they had that opportunity, that space. But I think if we get our training in place and we stick to the rules, Supervisor Gabbard, you're correct. I mean, you can be drunk in the parking lot, but you can't bring your beer inside. You know, if you have drugs in the parking lot, but they don't come inside. When you're inside, you're respectful to staff. There are things that we do because the choice is yours. You can sleep in here and be respectful, and you do not have to be sober, or you can go outside where it's -30. And sometimes there's a little bit of tough love that's hard for people to understand. But, you know, you can do it, and I think they'll get there. Everybody's trainable. I remember a pizza guy that ran for county executive once had no idea what he was doing. But I listened, you know, and I went to the trainings, and I let people invest themselves in me and how to be a county executive. And I changed, and I believe they can too.
I think we had an awful lot of good discussion here tonight. So now it's time to vote. Those in favor of resolution number 155-0120, 2023, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll have the presentation on Winnebago County social media policy by Mary Ann Miller, Winnebago County Corporate Counsel, and Eric Rasmussen, the Winnebago County Emergency Management Directors.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Rasmussen, Emergency Management Director for the county. Also currently leading the communications team for the county and worked with the team to put together the social media policy. Thank you guys for giving me an opportunity to come back tonight to present some more information and background on this policy for your review. I just want to start by saying a lot of this policy, most of this policy is based on case law. Mary Ann will refer to that as we get into this a lot. We're not really putting in rules in place that are not already based on case law. So I'll start my presentation here. Mary Ann will jump in when we get to her legal parts. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Why does Winnebago County need a social media policy? The county has been using social media for more than a decade with no standard countywide guidance in place. It is a priority of the county to increase our outward communication and transparency. We want to make sure that this communication is happening in a professional and legal manner. The proposed policy will provide standard and legal guidance for the county's use of social media. Over the last 6 months, Winnebago County social media accounts averaged almost 2,500 updates, posts, and comments per month. In the month of November, this number was 4,288. So as you can see, we don't have one Facebook account or one Twitter account. This is something that we're actively using to educate the members of our community. Why is it important for us to have a social media presence? 86% of Americans, adult Americans, receive their news from a smartphone, computer, or tablet. So a majority of our adult population in the country is utilizing electronic means for their news. This is even more common with adults under 50 years of age. 67% of adults between 30 and 49 are using smartphones, computers, and tablets primarily, and 71% between 18 and 29. Even if we get to 50 to 64, we're still over half at 52%. Again, out of 66% of the adult populations who use an app like Facebook, 33% or half of them are getting their news from that format. We go to 22% if we go to YouTube, 13% Twitter, 11% Instagram. Those are the primary 4 social media platforms. Biggest question I guess I've heard the most, does this policy apply to the personal use of social media? This policy does not apply to personal use of social media unless they are using their personal account as a representative of the county. But it does inform employees that they should exercise caution when posting and commenting because as a public employee, their stated opinions and speech may be attributed back to the county. And I'm going to hand it over to Mary Ann to discuss some of that case law.
So now we will get to the law. So as you can see, the United States Supreme Court was looking at this issue more than 50 years ago, in 1968, in the case of Pickering versus the Board of Education. And in that case, the Supreme Court overturned the firing of a teacher because he wrote a letter to the editor of a newspaper critical of the school board's budget-related decisions. And the United States Supreme Court stated, number one, public employees do not lose the protections of the First Amendment because they walk through the door of their employer. And the court noted that it was important to balance the interests of the First Amendment with the interests of the workplace. And you can see, and I've quoted it, the problem in any case is to arrive at a balance between the interests of the teacher as a citizen in commenting upon matters of public concern and the interest of the state as an employer in promoting the efficiency of the public service it performs through its employees. The next case was 15 years later, and that's Connick versus Myers. And in that case, the United States Supreme Court clarified how Pickering should be applied by listing the factors courts must look at when determining whether public employers' restraint of employee speech runs afoul of the First Amendment. So in Connick versus Myers, Harry Connick was a DA, a district attorney for New Orleans. And Sheila Myers was an assistant district attorney who worked for Attorney Connick. She distributed a questionnaire after she was transferred to another section of the office. And that questionnaire implied that the office was mismanaged. Connick, the DA, terminated Myers for, number one, refusing the transfer to this separate area, different part of the office, and he also claimed that she was undermining his authority. So the United States Supreme Court ruled that the Myers termination did not violate the First Amendment, and they applied a two-part test. The first part was Myers speaking on a matter of public concern? And to make that determination, you have to look at the speech's content, context, and form. So it's not just what was said, it was the context, the manner in which the information was conveyed. So that's the first part. So if in fact there is a matter of public concern, then the interests of the First Amendment must be balanced with the need to efficiently operate a workplace. So in Connick, next page, a majority of the Supreme Court found that most of the questionnaire was not a matter of public concern, but there was an area that dealt with a matter of public concern, and that was one question as to whether the employees felt pressured to contribute to the district attorney's political campaign. And the Supreme Court said that was enough to qualify as a matter of public concern. And the court went on to state, in applying the balancing test, it is the state's burden in justifying a particular discharge varies depending on the nature of the employee's expression. The court talked about the fact that the burden on the public employer will shift and not be the same in every case. So what does that mean? Each case has to be considered on its own merits. So in upholding this termination in the Connick case, the court relied on the assertion that the district attorney said this questionnaire caused a mini insurrection in my office, and it also precipitated a no confidence vote in myself, Connick, the district attorney, and my supervisors. The other piece that the court noticed was, or factored in, was the fact that the questionnaire was distributed by Myers while Myers was at work. So it was pretty clear that it was at the workplace. Next one. Garcetti versus Ceballos, which is a 2006 case, involved a prosecutor who disclosed to defense counsel his belief that there were false statements used in a law enforcement sworn affidavit. And this disclosure was in direct contravention to the orders of his boss, District Attorney Garcetti. And the Supreme Court in that case, and I should say then Prosecutor Ceballos said, wait a minute, I'm suffering retaliation in violation of the First Amendment based on what District Attorney Garcetti has done to me. So the Supreme Court held that speech by a public official is only protected if it is engaged in as a private citizen, not if it is expressed as part of the official's public duties. The court in this case created a threshold test to even get to the matter of public concern inquiry. So again, the inquiry is, the speech by a public official is only protected if it is engaged in as a private citizen, and not if it's expressed as part of the official's public duties. Now, because Sabalis was acting as part of his official duties with the district attorney's office, the speech did not enjoy the protections of the First Amendment. Now, I will say that the Supreme Court, I believe, was concerned about creating a constitutional cause of action every time a public employer sought to discipline an employee who may have spoken on a matter of public concern. So I believe that's what the rationale of the court was in this. Next. We move up to 2022 and the case of Harnischfeger versus Kapinski. So in this case, the plaintiff, Amy Harnischfeger, published a book under a pseudonym, false name, describing her conversations as a phone sex operator. And she announced the publication of her book on Facebook. A month after publication, Harnischfeger began working as an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer with the Indiana National Guard. And her duties were ministerial, wrote. They included data collection, data entry, that type of thing. Harnischfeger's supervisor requested that she wanted to be her Facebook friend. Harnischfeger stated, "I felt compelled to let this person be my friend." So the supervisor discovered Harnischfeger's book and identified Harnischfeger as the author and demanded Harnischfeger's removal from the Indiana, from Vista. And so she was cut from the Vista program. The Seventh Circuit agreed that, number one, the book identified on the private Facebook account was speech on a matter of public concern. The speech caused no actual disruption. Again, her job was so routine that she could not be viewed as speaking for the National Guard. And the book reflected nothing about the National Guard. So as a result, the Seventh Circuit and District Court concluded that her First Amendment rights were violated. The next case is a little closer to our jurisdiction, and that's Schneider versus Carr. And this was just 6 months ago. So Schneider was a deputy warden of the Wisconsin Correctionals System. And he was responsible for overseeing 14 secured facilities. His duties included hiring, training, evaluating, and disciplining employees, and ensuring compliance with various policies. Now, the Department of Corrections fired Schneider for 5 screenshots of memes posted on his personal Facebook page after publication by the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. The posts were available to about 1,200 Facebook friends, including many Department of Correction employees. The memes included a photo of a black man with a caption stating, "Black state senator leaves the Democrat plantation," a photo of a woman and a child in hijabs with garbage bags on either side, in which he comments on the garbage bags being the women's children, and a photo of a rainbow flag with the caption, "If they have the right to fly theirs," paired with a photo of a Confederate flag with the caption, "We deserve the right to fly ours." So the Department of Correction stated, yes, we have a right to terminate this person, and the reason we have a right to terminate this person is because there was a denigration of minorities, Muslims, and the LGBTQ community, and that cast doubt on Schneider's ability to treat inmates, staff, and members of the public fairly, that Schneider's post had a detrimental effect on establishing and maintaining strong working relationships with a diverse workforce, and the prisoners may assume bias reflected in posts reflect bias of other prison staff. But that was the Department of Correction. It had to go to the courts. And the court's reasoning basically upheld the Schneider termination. And the court's reasoning for upholding the termination was essentially following what the DOC's train of thought was. It stated that all of the memes were mocking, derisive, and juvenile. And it says an employer is entitled to consider not just the ideas expressed by an employee, but also the manner in which he expresses those ideas. And again, that goes back to that Supreme Court case where you have to look at not just the words, but the context and the manner of how it was said. The court went on to say that it was reasonable for the Department of Corrections to conclude Schneider could no longer be effective in his job, again, due to his expressed hostility. He was not in a position where he was doing ministerial duties. This was an upper-level management person who was in charge of hiring and firing and making policies and adhering to policies. And then finally, the court concluded a perception could lead those in department custody to conclude the department held the same views. So this is a nutshell of the cases that underscore the social media policy.
Thanks, Marianne. Another question I received, does this policy apply to me as a county board supervisor? The answer, no, county board supervisors are not considered regular county employees. They are elected officials. Therefore, this policy does not apply to county board supervisors. Who is responsible for the content of county social media pages? Department heads are responsible for the content posted on their department's page. Department heads may authorize employees to post content on their department's page. An example, I'm the director for emergency management. It's my job to make sure that the content on my page is appropriate. I have staff that I have authorized to make posts on my page as well. The county's general social media page, the one that was launched late this summer, the Winnebago County Communication Team is responsible for the content on that page. Most of that is supplied and approved by department heads as it's submitted to that team.
Wait till the end, please.
Who determines if content is offensive? Who would be responsible for discipline if this policy is violated? We as a county are not legally allowed as a county to remove, mute, or censor public comments or on our page or posts. If the public makes a comment on our page, we don't have the authority to censor that. The policy itself does not reference this. Section 5.6 and Section 9.1 state that if a comment or post demonstrates or incites unlawful behavior, it may be referred to law enforcement authorities. So if someone is making a public comment on one of our posts or on our pages that is insightful, that can be referred to law enforcement authorities. That's current practice. Section 5.8 states that the social media provider, example Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, may block a user or remove content in violation of their terms and conditions. When you sign up for any of those accounts, they have terms and conditions that you agree to be on their platform. We as a county would have no bearing or input on that decision. The policy does not apply to the personal use of social media unless they're using their personal account as a representative of the county. It does inform employees that they should exercise caution when posting and commenting because as a public employee, their stated opinions and speech may be attributed back to the county. Internal issues with content posted or non-compliance with the social media policy would be referred to human resources, just like any other disciplinary action. Where can complaints or violations of the policy be filed? Complaints regarding content shared on a county page should be referred to the department head responsible for that page. Complaints regarding public comments should be referred to the social media platform, or if a comment or post demonstrates or incites unlawful behavior, should be referred to law enforcement authorities. Internal issues with content posted or non-compliance with the policy should be referred to HR, just like any other disciplinary action. Is Section 5.8 wrong? Section 5.8 reads, the county should not deny access to the county's social media profile to any individual who violates the county's social media policy. The social media provider may, relying on their terms and conditions and their discretion, block a user or remove content in violation of the terms and conditions. And nothing herein restrains the social media provider from such actions. As a county, we're not legally able to block or deny access to our pages. The platform, Facebook, Twitter, etc., may block a user or remove content that is in violation of their terms and conditions. The county, again, would have no bearing in this decision. So if someone made a comment that was disparaging to my department, I can't block them from being able to comment on my department, but the platform could make the decision that their posts are inappropriate and not in line with their conditions and terms of agreement, and could remove that content or that user. What is the record retention time for this content? Record retention is a critical component of this policy. It's something that our IS department works on, IT department works on very diligently. The county is required to maintain electronic records of the social media posting and comments for 7 years. The county utilizes an outside vendor, Introdyne, to ensure compliance with this requirement. Where did this policy come from? Well, like I said before, a lot of this is based on case law. The policy presented was drafted utilizing policies from Outagamie and Marathon County primarily. Policies from Brown, Calumet, Washington, and Wood County were also used as references and on smaller scales. Outagamie and Marathon County's policies most closely resemble the current staff communication structure in Winnebago County. Some of those other counties have dedicated communication teams and personnel, so the staffing structure and the way they use social media is different than we currently use it here in Winnebago. Most of these policies are very similar and were based off of the original policy template from Marathon County, which was drafted by the Wisconsin Counties Association. What other counties have social media policies? Ashley Mukasa from our health department is their media specialist. She sent out a questionnaire. These are the counties who responded, and we have a copy of their policy. Brown, Buffalo, Calumet, Dane, Marathon, Oneida, Outagamie, Pierce, Price, Washington, and Wood. What social media platforms do we currently use? Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. What Facebook accounts do we have? Winnebago County, Wisconsin Government, that'd be our general Facebook page. Winnebago County DARE, 4-H Winnebago County Health Department, Winnebago County Emergency Management, Winnebago County Parks and Sunnyview Expo Center, Winnebago Area Teen Coalition for Health, Winnebago County, Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation, Winnebago County Social Media Coalition, Whitman Regional Airport, Winnebago County UW Extension, Winnebago County Veteran Service Office, Winnebago County, Wisconsin Sheriff's Office, Winnebago County Solid Waste, and Parkview Health Center. This list is from the Introdyne, where we track all of those sites and those comments that I referenced before. YouTube channels that we have, WISO channel, that would be the Sheriff's Office, Winnebago County Health Department, Winnebago County Public Meetings, Instagram, the Sheriff's Office, Twitter accounts, the Sheriff's Office, Emergency Management, UW Extension, and Winnebago County Health Department. And that's the end.
Supervisor Eisen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric, I would like to refer back to 5.8, and I'd ask all the supervisors that have their copy to read along and see what it says. Because I've done a lot of reading in my lifetime, maybe not as much as I ought to have. However, it says here, the county should not deny access to the county's social media profile to any individual who violates the county's social media policy. I am befuddled by that sentence. You can't deny access to whatever the social media profile is. It's probably got to be something important, but to an individual who violates the social media policy. I throw my hands up. Help me.
That's correct, Paul. As a county, case law states that we are not able to prevent anyone from access to our pages.
It should not deny access to the social media profile. What is social media profile?
Would be an account or a page. Example of any of those Facebook pages, YouTube accounts, Twitter accounts that I referenced at the end.
Well, you can't deny it because somebody's out in the boondocks, if they have internet and they log on to a website. You can't stop them from linking to that page, can you?
The apps have the ability to block people. If we worked in a private entity and somebody was speaking disparagingly about our business or our company, we could block that person so they wouldn't be able to comment, make remarks, make posts on our page. As a county, as a public entity, we don't have the authority to do that.
Yeah, but that would be a horrendous task, you know, for every individual who had an adverse inclination or interpretation to search those pages. You know, it'd be, you know, I couldn't see how you could really filter them out. Well,
I think if you went back to the health department's page for the last 2.5 years, it'd be really easy to pick out a lot of people that if you were making the posts you'd want to block.
I'll just accept it, but the point of fact too is it doesn't apply to county board supervisors. So let's vote on it.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Who is the county communications team?
Currently, that team consists of myself, Jessica Hansen, who works at Winnebago County Solid Waste, Dustin Jagger, who works at the Parks Department, and Ashley Mukasa, who works for the Health Department. The other 3 people all have social media and, I guess I would say, communications as a main part of their job.
And you all take this case law very seriously, I take it.
Correct. I mean, I think one of the other things, social media is not a heavy part of my job. For these other 3 that it is, they follow this case law much more frequently, right? So it's easier for them to follow. Somebody like myself or Land and Water Department, we may not follow that as closely. Having a place where all of these policies are written down and that guidance is in place is much easier for me to follow than to try to get Mary Ann's time or to try to keep up on this case law as it happens.
Because this really is a free speech issue, and we have been dealing, you know, I mean, this is right in the public forefront right now, in terms of disclosure as to what happened with some of the social media companies and some of the communication between the three-letter agencies and the government and the social media companies. And my question in that regard then is, would the county communications team, not being able to do anything about posts on your website, be calling or otherwise contacting social media organizations in order to have content removed, as we've seen certain three-letter agencies do with social media companies? In other words, would you, if you couldn't remove a post from the public, would you call one of the social media companies to get them to do it for you?
We wouldn't have any, could we report something? Sure. If something was disparaging or offensive or vulgar, that's
Okay.
something, but we wouldn't have any ability to make that decision.
But the concern there, as you might imagine, is if you're gonna make that call, there's ways in which you can interject your own, for example, political belief system as to how you are having a discussion with these people in terms of which content you want removed and which you want to allow to stay. Am I correct?
You want to hit that?
Do you know what I'm trying to say here?
I think what you're trying to say is people can put spins on things.
Exactly.
Is that what you're?
Exactly, and my concern is the CCT, as I'm going to label you, you're now a three-letter agency within the county, a CCT. Is the CCT going to be calling the social media companies, and are you going to refrain from bias in who you decide is going to be removing, what you're going to remove as content from our county website and what's not going to be removed?
Well, again, they don't make the determination, but I can tell you that if there was an issue that would come up, I would assume they would be calling my office and looking at the law, because that's what we're required to do.
All right. I'm just concerned, as we all have been seeing lately, that maybe we're not seeing an even-handed situation being demonstrated by the social media companies and the removal of content. Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
Can I?
I'm sorry, just hold on.
Okay, one more
Supervisor Hanson,
response
he
to
wants
that.
to answer that.
Before that, I think for me and as a user for the county and as an employee of the county, I think that the intent of what we're trying to do with social media is actually the opposite. It's our intent to be more transparent. It's our intent to provide more information, to educate the public on what we are doing as a county. I know that's something Executive Damel has preached very heavily to us and has made a point of. That's part of the reason I'm here today, is that that's something that he finds very important, and that we as a county are trying to do is open up that transparency and that communication. So as employees of the county, the intent of this policy and the intent of us utilizing these platforms is outward communication and transparency more than an attempt to put a political spin on anything. That's not why as a county employee I'm here. I don't have a political bias in my job.
My only concern is I would like to see an even-handed approach, an apolitical, even-handed approach to this, where we can be assured that there isn't going to be the kind of situation we're seeing with on a national scale.
Sure. And agreed. Like Mary Ann said before, if there was something that was of concern that needed to be reported, we'd run that by Mary Ann's office to make sure that was legal. Otherwise, if it was insightful, it'd be referred to law enforcement office. Sheriff Motz has a team who works on that stuff, and that would be their ability to make the decision whether that's legal or insightful or not. Yeah.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologies up front. I'm amending a lot of these comments on the fly based on the presentation. Some of the concerns that I have, is a little bit echoed, is to the previous Supervisor Swan just mentioned. First want to say, Eric, I absolutely don't envy the position that you're in. This could not have been an easy assignment given to you. And I commend you for absolutely for what you did. I also commend this county for bringing this forward to the board. I know that Marathon County this was heavily modeled after Marathon County. It is interesting to note that Marathon County did not vote on this at the board level. The chairman of the board did not put this on their agenda. It was, however, passed forward through their communications. I think their rules are a little different to Winnebago County, that this needs to come to our board in order to pass. With that said, I reiterate something that I said before last time. I don't understand why some people are irresponsible and reckless. Mary Ann, what was the case that just 6 months ago of the Department of Corrections? What was that case?
It's not Harnischberger, it's Schneider.
Schneider. I don't know why he would do what he did. That's dumb, in my opinion. But and I'm going to amend this part to what Supervisor Swan said. Currently, there is case law, but there's also new case law. There's an article by undercoverdc.com, Tracy Beans put it out. This was November 22 decision in a case of State of Missouri versus Biden. It was a civil liberties case, and the judge absolutely slapped down the government for civil liberties violation. There's another one. I don't care what your politics are of State of Missouri and Louisiana before Judge Doty versus Biden administration, specifically regarding social media. I read some of the depositions that are a little unbelievable to me. I have no doubt. I don't care what your politics are, whether you agree or disagree with Biden administration or State of Missouri or Louisiana. I don't care what Judge Doughty rules. I have absolutely zero doubt, because of the plaintiff and defendant, that it's going to go before the Supreme Court. Am I out of time, Mr. Chairman?
You have 1:15. I gave you your second
Okay.
2 minutes. So.
If this does go forward, I do have some concerns with some of them. There's one line on 8.1 that I would really like to see changed. It says, and if people follow along, it says it's important that employees are aware that there are limitations to this right. I really don't like the word limitations. I think that breaches a First Amendment issue. I would prefer that it said consequences, because absolutely there's consequences to, like Schneider did. I don't have a problem with that. Again, if it goes forward, I would like to see at the very end on the certification, I think it's implied on the last page. I don't think we need to say, I agree to abide by these policies. I'm also worried that putting this forward to an employee who's been with the county for 10, 15, 20 years, that they might feel coerced to sign this. And if that's the case, what do we do? Because of the current cases that are before the courts right now, I think this is a landmine that I don't know we should step in, and I'm inclined to vote no.
Chairman Egan, could I just
Yes.
respond to one item that Supervisor Hanson referenced? You had alluded to Marathon County and how, while they do have a social media policy, the board decided not to act on it, and it was issued via a directive based on your research from the county executive or county administrator in that county. Is that correct? You can.
Just hold on. I'll put it on so they can all hear you. There you go.
If I remember right, it was Sarah Severson, I believe was her name, is the one who authored the Marathon County and put it forward. But I think it's just commendable to Eric and our county executive that this is before our board, because it did not pass or even make it to the agenda of Marathon County.
And again, this is just sort of following what Eric had indicated. County Executive Damel wanted to be transparent to show the board what was being involved here. And as you know, the county executive has the authority over the day-to-day affairs while the board handles policy. But an argument could be made that this is touching on the day-to-day affairs of the county and those operations. And in terms of who authored, again, my understanding is that the Marathon County policy was actually based on attorneys from the Wisconsin Counties Association putting something together. And I can tell you, and I know Supervisor Hanson and I have had many conversations on this topic, the policy that the communications team put together is basically identical to what Marathon County / the Wisconsin Counties Association authored, just for clarification.
It's a lot of this is right before courts right now. I have no doubt that it's going to go back before the Supreme Court.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of questions here, and I'll start with kind of questions and clarifications. I think with the policy, especially if you look here, especially in section 8.3, and what it's trying to say that freedom of speech does not mean that you are free from consequences. If you say something stupid, you can expect consequences. And I would like to actually move to amend this in 8.1, but I'll get to that later. I guess the other thing is for 8.5, most public, actually all public figures and government, oh sorry, no, 5 points, the one that Supervisor Eisen was mentioning, 5.8. For that, any politician or institution, public institution on a account run by government staff cannot censor anything. If you look at any U.S. Senator or U.S. Congressman's official Facebook page or Twitter page, there are a lot of nasty comments out there, and they cannot fix them. So I just wanted to clarify that for the board, that no matter what somebody may say about our county on our Facebook page, we cannot touch it. We can't touch it because of the way that this is constructed through case law and record retention. The next thing I would say is, I guess this kind of leans into that, if you are representing the county, is to use the best judgment you possibly can. You are more than welcome to have your opinions, and you should have your opinions as a private citizen, but to exercise your best judgment in representing the county. And then I would also go to say, if I could amend section 8.1, Mr. Chairman, if I could move to amend, find the damn thing, section 8.1, and where it says, the county values employees' First Amendment right to communicate on their personal social media accounts. However, it is important that the employees are aware that there are limitations to this right. Could we strike our limitations to this right and replace it with consequences and responsibilities with this right?
And I think that is a follow-up to what Supervisor Hanson referenced.
Correct,
Because I
yeah.
think he said consequences, but you've added in responsibilities.
Yes.
And just so we have this all, so that's 8.1. So eliminate limitations and replace it with consequences and responsibilities.
Right.
And then again, the other reference was Supervisor Hanson on the signature page, taking out the last phrase, and I agree to abide by these policies.
Yeah, I would like to strike that too.
Okay. So those are the only two changes so far, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right,
Right.
right, it's not on the floor, so, it's not even on the floor. This here is
But you
just,
can-
you're just presenting it.
This is the
It's gotta
presentation.
be
And-
on the floor before they can strike anything.
Right, and I will say that that is legal. And I think I've spoken with Supervisor Hanson. Those changes are legal. Yeah.
I'll wait to propose those once we have it on the floor. Thank you.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for all this information and a lot of work that's gone into this. I have a couple questions that go, I think, beyond what you've prepared. Curious if you had any conversations in composing this that develop guidance for groups or other structures besides pages or sort of the primary account that someone could register for on a social media platform?
I'm going to let you respond. I don't know.
Give me another example of what you mean by groups.
So, so like Facebook allows people to create a group and create like sort of closed, conversations or sharing of information and whatnot. Honestly, I don't know a lot about various social media platforms, but I understand that most of them allow for, carving out subsets of the full universe to communicate to. Sometimes that can actually be like Facebook allows a group or certain like Signal or other some of those other like texting networks allow for the creation of private groups that way. So I was just curious if any of that had been thought of, and maybe an example would be, if there are users of 4-H who create a Facebook group for 4-H users, or something of that nature. Yeah, it kind of felt like something that was missing, but a critical part of how people organize themselves and how information is shared on social media.
Sure, I believe I understand your question. I guess I would say that creating a closed group would be something that we wouldn't be able to do because that would limit access. So that would go back to that section 5.8 that we've been discussing, 5.8 that we were discussing before. I think that there would be the ability for the public to do that. I don't know as a county that would be something of value. If we were distributing information to a certain group, I believe we'd use something like our email accounts instead of a social media account for that. Right. Yeah, and we wouldn't limit that or call that into a certain group on social media.
Do you know, when you were building your list of pages, did you run any audits of any groups or things like that had been operating or existing?
So the audit that we had for all the accounts that I have and the numbers that I referenced at the start, those are actually through that Intradyne system that we use for record retention. So all of those accounts are the ones that we are tracking.
Okay.
So I don't believe that any of them have any group settings. I have not heard of any county departments using that, and I don't think that would be an appropriate use.
Okay. Then another line of item is, do we have any policy about like social media relationships between supervisors and employees? Are there any employees who are required to share their social media handles or become friends or other formal relationships on social media with their supervisors or other members of staff?
Mike, can you answer that?
I was trying to think if there was a policy that would cover that, but I do remember that question coming up quite a number of years ago in HR, and the determination was made that we could not require and would not require either employees or job applicants to share any social media passwords or allow any greater access than the general public would have. So we have not done that for at least the past 8 years. By a conscious decision, I'm not sure it was ever reflected in a formal policy.
I think down the road, I think that would be something to think about adding into this, developing a policy about what the expectations would be. I've seen examples where in a policy like this, there's just a separate, just a note that says nobody can be compelled or coerced to enter into social media relationships with coworkers or things like that. Not to preclude it, but just to make sure that people don't feel pressured. But that's all I have right now. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before my two quick questions here, I just want to say that I hope we see emergency management on all 4 platforms soon, because with everything that's gone on, we're reaching out to the most amount of people we can get to. I noticed that you weren't on all 4 of the big 4 that you put out there. As far as referring a problem user to the platform, Mary Ann, could you speak to the legality of us referring someone we're having problems with to a platform about issues with them. Would that not fall into I mean, we can refer them to authorities if there's
If there's going to be inciting riots, violence, something to that effect,
Right.
yes. Yes.
So they could be referred to a platform for things that we would refer them to law enforcement for.
Correct.
What I'm trying to figure out with Mr. Swan's point here is if somebody's just on there and they're majorly abusive and they're constantly putting out misinformation in their comments and things like that, or sharing and whatnot. And what if somebody were to refer somebody like that to the platform? Would there be legal repercussions? That's, I think, what Tom was trying to get at with that.
And that's the question. Someone's misinformation might be another person's information.
Right.
Okay? And I think that's the nub of all of this.
But I'm guessing it would be policy that you wouldn't be referring people back to the platforms. Like you wouldn't be saying, oh, this person's abusive on Twitter, we're going to let Twitter know.
I will defer to Eric because Eric and his
Yeah.
team was putting this policy
Well, I want to get
together,
the
so
legal
they may
part
have-
out of the way first.
Yeah.
So I think we're going down several different paths.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that I've run into as I've tried to answer questions to this policy is we can go down a lot of different rabbit holes. Misinformation, if somebody provides misinformation on my page, as an administrator for my page, it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm keeping track of what those comments are and addressing false information. Captain Vindola with the Sheriff's Office handles that very frequently on her end. Yeah, please.
I mean, I've managed our social media pages for 11 years, and so we deal with this pretty regularly. And depending on what exactly it is that the person is arguing about or has bad information about, we do several things. We'll either engage them and correct the information and say, no, you said X, Y, Z, but it was really ABC. We want to make sure the public knows it's ABC. Or we completely ignore them, completely altogether, because it's usually somebody that has an emotional response to something we said or did, and it doesn't behoove anybody to try to get into a battle of wits with anybody. Or you were talking about referring back to the platform. In 11 years, we've never done that. The platform has kicked people off, though, like they were just talking about, and we have no control over that. So if they violate the terms of service of Facebook, Facebook says, you violated Jimmy Smith, you violated, they're gone. I'll never even know that they were there. And then one other thing that happens very frequently is that within our pages, other citizens that are commenting will police the people that are saying inappropriate things and realize that, boy, did you realize what you just said? Did you just see what you just said? I don't think that's right. You know, that guy doesn't seem like he's in the right frame of mind or something. And there's quite often that we will come across posts that happened at 2 in the morning, and then by 7 in the morning, the person self-deleted their own post because they realized maybe they said something that was inappropriate that they shouldn't have said personally. So that happens quite often where we'll look back and realize I was going to say something or I was going to call Mary Ann and it's gone because the person deleted it on their own. So we have a lot of that, and we have a lot of ways to address that, and we've been very successful in thwarting a lot of that. Now I just said that out loud, so probably we won't be after tonight, but the sheriff will tell you social media is the devil, so it's just how we manage it.
But
Yep.
I think it's very telling. If
Yep.
you've been doing this for 11 years
Yep.
and they haven't had one issue.
Okay, thank you. That's very reassuring. And my second question, what if a county employee decides to make a mock satire account? One that pops in off the top of my head is when the former President Trump was first put in office, there was a mock account called Sean Spicier. And nobody noticed the typo in it, and he just made comments like he was the speaker, or excuse me, the press secretary, and people took it for granted. So what if somebody puts one in, and I'm sorry to pick on you, Mr. Eisen, with using this, but what if one puts one in there, John Domel, and they just change one letter so it's Domel, and they were to act like our county supervisor, but they were an actual employee? It's a satire account. Can they hide behind the satire on that? I think that's a loophole that we need to discuss.
I don't know that I have an answer to that question. I think it would depend on, sorry. I think it would depend on the content. I mean, and then I don't know how we as a county would have the authority to find out who was behind that account. I don't know legally how that would line up. I guess if we got to the point where that was something we were investigating, Mary Ann and her counterparts would figure that out for us.
Well, my point was that I'm pretty sure someone who had something who actually was succeeding in making their points like that, eventually they're going to tell somebody, and they're going to tell somebody else, because no secret ever stays a secret. And I was just wondering if you had even considered that in this process. So if you haven't, at least now maybe you'll have that there if someone were to do that one day.
Sure. Thank you.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick questions. One, does the CH communication team, do they approve of all the social media accounts platforms for any department? Are they the ones who do it?
No. The only account that the communications team, that's a term we coined for ourselves, like CCT, I'll tell the team that we're that tomorrow. The only account that we manage is the county's main account. And what we're doing there is taking submissions from all of our departments. So once a month, what we've asked our department heads to do is either give us a post that they've already created to reshare, or to provide us the content for a post. So once a month, you should be seeing something from almost every department from the county. So the department head has already approved that content. We're just creating the post and scheduling it.
And my second question is probably for Marianne. So an employee can criticize any action that we do as a committee or as a board on their own personal social and there's no consequences. Are you telling me that?
Yeah, I am. Now, I will tell you, there is a difference between, let's say, an employee at Parkview versus corporation counsel, all right? And again, it's the matter of judgment, but on your personal accounts, and again, based on the law, there is freedom, okay? There's no question. But as corporation counsel for Winnebago County, if I were to say Supervisor Norton's decision was unfounded, okay, that would be a problem as corporation counsel for Winnebago County versus some staff member saying something like that.
So to be more specific, let's say the committee I'm on, and the committee makes a decision, and the person who works in his department on their social media says, this is a terrible thing that they're doing. You should tell your county board supervisor not to vote for it. They could do it without any consequences.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for you, Director Rasmussen. Actually, more if you could offer the same clarification that you told me before the meeting and in the weeks we've had, the conversation we had in the weeks prior, particularly about the social media app TikTok on county devices. There was a letter from our congressional delegation sent to Governor Evers with a question about that app being used on state devices, given the fact that it has a data mining and surveillance issue. I know that both Fond du Lac County and Washington County have policies that have been implemented by their county executives. And I reached out to the county executive, and he said he has a similar policy, and that I reached out to you guys further and asking, kind of what it was. If you could kind of run over that briefly and kind of what you outlined. I'm very happy with the response you gave me. I'm sorry that I kind of threw a lot at you last week, but I was kind of really wondering about it. So if you could kind of run over that, and I'd like to thank Director Frank Core as well and Corporation Counsel for kind of explaining that to me. So if you would, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, we do not have any county devices that have TikTok on them, and that's not a platform that we are using as a county or any of our departments currently. Figure out where I want to go with this. So IS has the ability with our county devices to determine what platforms, apps that we can add to our phones. If I wanted to add TikTok to my county-issued cell phone, I would need to ask IS to do that through their software management system. I believe that there are some questions regarding record retention with TikTok in particular, that would probably not be something that they would want us to support, and that would be a decision that would probably then come up to John, Patty, if we needed to go there, right? Yeah, so, does that answer your question?
It does, and it kind of explains it for the crowd. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we're going to go ahead and do the resolution, and we can. We thank you too, but don't go too far. Resolution number 131-1120-22, supporting Winnebago County social media policy, submitted by Information Systems and Committee. Supervisor Norton.
Resolution?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion than what we've had? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to amend the social media policy with what I referenced last time. I can read it out again if this is the appropriate time to do so. I would like to amend section 8.1 on the 5th line, starting at the word "are limitations to this right." I would like to strike the word "are limitations to," the words "are limitations to," and then put in the words "consequences and responsibilities with." So it would read that employees are aware that there are consequences and consequences and responsibilities with this right. And then I would also like to further amend the policy on the back. Instead, the certification, it said, I've read and understand the Winnebago County social media policy, and strike, and I agreed to abide by these policies. I think it's kind of redundant. Thanks. Yeah.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, what, who's this vote? Majority vote?
Yes.
Just hold on, the girls gotta get it typed up here and we'll. Everybody just hold on. After this vote, we're gonna take a little break because we gotta reboot a computer. We're gonna try it by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Thank you. So now we go back with this amendment, right? So now we'll go back on resolution number 131-1120-22 as amended. Not seeing any discussion on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Okay, we'll be taking, how long a break? 5 or 10 minute break we'll be taking until they get that one booted up. So.
The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we're here to present the capital improvements plan for 2023 through 2027. I want to give you first just a brief overview of what we're doing with the capital improvements plan, what it is, why it's important, and what we're asking the county board to do with it. And then there'll be presentations on some of the individual projects by the sheriff and director of parks. So capital improvements. First of all, you should have either a hard copy, perhaps, but more likely just a copy on your tablets of the capital improvements plan, a 70-page document. What is this? We're looking at capital improvements for the county beyond those that are budgeted. So I'm going to skip right ahead to, I think, page 3 and look at what's a capital project. And what is the difference between a capital project and a capital outlay is something to keep in mind. In the budget, we have certain capital items that are already included in each department's budget, funded through tax levy or other revenue sources that are called capital outlay items. Those are budgeted, already authorized by the board, appropriated, et cetera. Those are done. But throughout the course of the year, we have other projects that come up, some of them substantial. And we'll see here that we use as a definition of a capital improvements project, as opposed to just a capital outlay item, as something that's expected to involve an investment of over $100,000. So they're the major items. And they're the type of investment that produces an asset to the county that's expected to be of some substantial value for a period of time, at least 5 years and usually longer. These capital assets can be very expensive, hard to fund through the tax levy, so we often use borrowing as a means of financing them. So that's why we have and have had historically a different approval method. There is a discussion of the possibility of maybe next year or the year after including all the capital expenditures in the budget, which is a different process, not the one we've been following, but we're moving toward that. And we're moving toward it this year by consolidating all of our projects into one request for board action in the form of a resolution. So last year, we had presentations of capital projects at various times throughout the year, various county board meetings. And the reason we have presentations is it's in our code, it's in the board rules that before the board votes on authorizing a capital improvements project, that the department requesting it is to present the need for the project and explain the project to the board at a meeting prior to the meeting when the board is asked to vote on the resolution authorizing the project. So what we're going to do this year is consolidate, compress that timeline a little bit, and between tonight and an extra special orders meeting that the chair has agreed to call, which will be the first Tuesday in February. I can't recall right offhand. I think it's February 7th. We'll be presenting all of our capital projects for approval that we want to ask the board for financing for in 2023, get those all done tonight, start tonight and mostly in February, and then at the regular board meeting, which I believe is February 28th, we're going to submit a resolution to the board, or hope to, through the Personnel and Finance Committee, to approve all of the planned capital improvement projects for the year. And this will help us get a quicker start on them, help us start the projects earlier in the year, and I think frankly it's better policy to show you all the projects at once, have you vote on them all together rather than one at a time, and then it's, oh, that sounds like a good idea, but are you really keeping track of how much money we're spending overall? So I want to bring your attention to that issue a little bit, how much money we're spending overall. So there are really two parts to the plan. One is a list of projects that we really want to start this year in 2023. And then there's a longer term plan, the 5-year plan, to make sure we're actually planning ahead, making sure we're not going to get bunched up and have too much money to spend all at once in one year and not enough perhaps in other years. We like to spread it out. So the only part we're really asking for board approval on is the list of projects for 2023. The rest of it is just a planning document used by administration. We want to keep track of things, as I said, make sure we're spreading these expenditures out properly. So I'm going to move ahead to, is this working now? Worked before. Is it because it's sharing? Can you move it ahead on the laptop? Just hit the space bar, usually does it. There, perfect. All right, so this, it's on page 4 of the capital improvements plan, is really the meat and bones. This is the list of projects that we want to seek your approval of for 2023. So there's a list of projects, they're organized by departments, and you'll see that we have 6 departments requesting capital improvement projects for 2023 that we want to present. Airport facilities, highway, parks, sheriff, and UWO Fox Cities. So we're only going to present the projects from 2 departments tonight, being sheriff and parks. But here's the full list, so you can see it all at once. And some of these have already been approved, but typically for just the planning stage, the design phase, or perhaps a feasibility study. But the main funding is going to come this year, and that hasn't been approved by the board yet. So it's included in this year's plan. So we have the list by department, by project, and with the total funding expected. The first couple of columns after the name of the project show how much has already been approved, if there has been some approved. For most there hasn't. Under 2023 year's cost, county funding and outside funding for each project is given. Now it doesn't say here whether the county funding will be from tax levy or fund balance or borrowing. There's almost a presumption that it will be borrowing, but that's not always the case. We generally don't use direct tax levy to fund these projects. They're usually funded either through borrowing, through the issuance of bonds, like we did last fall in October, or through use of fund balance. Now, over the past year, our fund balance a year ago was higher than our policy, higher than the range our policy calls for, so we've been using a lot of projects to bring down our fund balance. Our fund balance is currently, according to the last report, within the target range that our policy calls for. We haven't finished up the books for 2022. It could end up higher than the range again, not by as much I wouldn't expect, because we have used up quite a bit of it. But if it does, we'll decide to fund some of these projects through fund balance and just borrow what we need to. All right, so looking at the list, one of the key columns is under 2023 year's cost county funding. And that's where some of the big numbers are, and at the bottom of that first column, you see the total, and it's almost $12 million, so $11,986,782. Now that's frankly more than we like to borrow every year, more than we like to spend on these projects every year. We generally have a target of about $10 million a year, sometimes a little less, in capital improvements projects funded this way. So that's a little bit high. And frankly, in this case, we had more projects than we could really fit within the 10 million, and it's the executive's intention to ask the board to really consider which of 2 options to follow to get it back down to about 10 million. So there are 2 that are highlighted there, one for the highway shop at 2.8 million. That could be taken out and only a much smaller project done for perhaps 600,000. Or the UWO Fox Cities has a very large project that they've already presented last year for the design stage, 2.2 million, and that's 2.2 million in funding from us plus the similar amount from Outagamie County. And Outagamie County has been raising questions about whether, even though they approved that money already in their budget, now they're looking at what is the future of that institution and should they be funding it at that level right now. So there are questions being asked, no decision yet. So that'll be something the board will want to think about carefully next month, and we'll see if there have been any developments at that time. But we really would like to get that number to about 10 million. Why? It's so that we don't borrow too much all at once. The disadvantage of borrowing money, millions of dollars, is that you do have to pay it back. And we try very hard to keep our debt service levy relatively even. We don't, the amount we tax in order to pay for debt isn't subject to the same levy cap as our operating expenses are, which means that if we have a lot of debt and a lot of debt payments to make, the board can tax that money, even though it puts us above the cap. But that does have an impact on the community, on taxpayers. And they tend to be unhappy if all of a sudden that debt service levy jumps up 20 points per thousand. So we try to keep that very even or gradually declining if possible. And we've been successful over a number of years doing that, and there are some charts later in the plan document that will show you that. Before I get there, I do just want to point out some unusual features of our capital spending this year. In the lower part of this particular graph, there are some projects listed in a separate box. There's several of them that are color-coded green, and then 3 below that colored yellow. These are not part of what we're asking the board for approval for as part of this capital improvements plan. The 5 projects listed in green are ones that have been earmarked for possible approval using the ARPA funding. And in fact, I believe on all 5 of those, the ARPA Strategy and Outcomes Commission has approved those to be sent forward to you for funding as part of the $33.5 million in ARPA funding. So we're kind of flush with one-time money right now and able to fund more projects than we normally do by using that source. Then there are 3 other projects which normally would be capital improvement projects, but which we've already decided to fund using fund balance without borrowing as part of our efforts to bring that fund balance down to the target range for the general fund undesignated balance. So that's about $6 million when you look at those 2 sets of projects together. So quite a bit of one-time money, and a real concern I have is making sure we don't get too carried away in the future, because that one-time money will not always be there. We have to really take seriously our target goal of $10 million borrowing each year or no more. Right, so after this point, the plan document mainly contains descriptions of each individual project, and that's what will be presented to you by the departments proposing them. So I'm going to skip through most of those right now and not take up too much time. There's lots of diagrams and pictures and explanations. And I do want to say that our finance director, Paul Kaiser, this is one of his first real big major projects that he really took the lead on putting together this book, and I think he did a great job. I think the format is a little bit more concise than we've had in the past, and I think a little easier to follow when you actually look at the project descriptions. So when we get to the end of the individual projects, we end up with what's really the meat of the second purpose of the capital improvements plan, which is the planning document, the 5-year plan. So we have page 59. So we have a list of projects. It's really pages 59 through 61 that are included in the 5-year plan. These are projects that have been submitted by different departments. We gave everyone a timeline to request projects for this year, but also to indicate what projects they saw in the years ahead to come. And we did a fair amount of shifting around. You know, when we first had this list, and I'm going to go to the end to see the totals. It's really just pages 59 and 60. I look at the bottom for the year 2025. When we first did the draft, it was, I think, 17 million there in that one year. And we can't borrow that much money. There will be a spike in our borrowing costs when we have to repay it, and that will make taxpayers unhappy. So we try to smooth that out very hard, move things around. And now if you look at the bottom numbers under the county funding totals, most of them are reasonably close to the 10 million, 8 to 11 million, I would say. Things change every year as plans get sharpened and the needs are more carefully identified. We redo these every year. They don't just stay fixed through the 5-year period. Also, prices, the price tag often tends to change, as we found out quite a bit recently. But this is the 5-year plan, so you can see all the different projects that we do have in mind to spend in future years through 2027. You know, and borrowing, you know, maybe $5 to $6, $8, $10 million each year. After this list, we do have a list a short list, fortunately, of projects that have been removed entirely, meaning they were submitted by departments but disapproved by the county executive for inclusion in the 5-year plan for various reasons. Just want you to be aware that they're there, that there was some selectivity, and some didn't quite make the cut for various reasons. Following that page is a status report of the existing capital improvement projects that had previously been approved in prior years. They're still going on, collected some information about where they are. And then the last few pages, I'm up to page 68 now, is information about the borrowing we've had so far. So this page 68 lists all of our current indebtedness. That's what we have. You can see it. It's only about $24.3 million at the end of 2022, which is great. Our indebtedness is a very small fraction. I forget what it is, something like 3 or 4% of what we're legally allowed to borrow. But if we borrowed what we're legally allowed to borrow, again, it would be a very substantial debt service levy we'd have to pay. And our advisors do all sorts of projections, and I realize you can't see the fine print here on the screen, but this is from our financial advisors at Baird, showing both our current indebtedness and the indebtedness called for if we borrow $10 million a year for the next 5 years, and what that will do to our tax levy, our debt service levy. And shown on the last page, it's actually the red line, shows what our debt service will be if we follow the plan. Now the plan only goes to 2027, so the red line here, tax levy rate, between 50 and 55%, I believe. That red line is very straight. Then it falls off because that's just beyond the scope of anything we've even planned to borrow yet. It's beyond the scope of our plan. But if we continue to have these kind of plans, that would level off that red line and bring it up there, which is kind of what we want to keep it stable. So just wanted to give you that overview. Now, as I said, county code requires the individual projects to be presented to you. So we're going to have a couple of projects presented now by the departments, and frankly, more projects presented at the February meeting, special orders meeting. But we're going to try to get this done, try to keep the presentations as concise as we can so that you're able to consider the resolution, approving them at the end of February. So without further ado, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask the sheriff and his associates to come up and present the projects they have in the plan. Sheriff Motz.
Thank you. So we'll be presenting 3 projects. We're going to rapid fire this. It'll be informative, but yet we're going to make it go as quickly as possible. The first one, or 2 of the projects, will be presented by Captain Lara Vendola. She's our communications captain and our guru when it comes to technology. One will be replacing the county-owned radios. And she'll go through that process of how we got here, then also the dispatch consoles in our comm center, and then Lieutenant Ross Johnson will be presenting on the jail wiring upgrade that needs to happen in order for us to continue technology changes, as well as part of the new evidence garage slash morgue. Adding certain cameras to that facility will require that upgrade as well. So go ahead.
Just a quick correction, you might have an old agenda there. The radios that he just mentioned got moved to the ARPA money. Mr. Collard had that up there on his presentation, but if you want to grab the... Sure, the dispatch console one? Sure, cool. So the radios were part of this initial plan, but they got moved over to the ARPA Strategy Commission, which has already been hopefully approved and will come to the board at some point separately from this. So that was removed from the CIP plan. So the dispatch console workstation replacement, again, we're just going to hit a concise, high-level overview of what our 911 center looks like and what that might mean for a replacement. So our comm center is the only PSAP in the Winnebago County. We're the only place that answers 911 calls. We're the only place that enters calls for service and dispatches, police, fire, EMS, to all the agencies in Winnebago County. That's 9 law enforcement agencies, 15 fire, 13 first responder groups, and 4 different ambulance companies. Are you able, can you put it on the one that's got the, I don't think I can do it with this, where it's the, nope, you're right up there. On the, that's okay, go back up and, oh yeah, on the slideshow? Yep, there we go. Okay, no problem. That's okay. All right. So I was able to grab 22's data as well. It's hard to see. I understand that you can't see the numbers, but you can tell by looking at it that our numbers in the comm center stay pretty constant over the years. This is 6 years worth of data. We field about 175,000 phone calls. They dispatch about 175,000 incidents, and somewhere around 50,000 911 calls of those calls that come in. So this stays pretty constant, and they're very, very busy in the comm center. And just a high-level overview of the comm center history itself. So we had to upgrade a ton of equipment back about 10 years ago, and we've been upgrading all sorts of equipment ever since then. In 2011, 12, 13, the county funded a massive radio infrastructure project to the tune of about $11 million. And it's all of that equipment is housed and facilitated through the comm center and the staff that is in the comm center. We've had equipment upgrades since that time. In 2021, we had a CIP project where we upgraded the 4 microwave links, which is how some of the radios talk in the comm center, through the comm center to all the police agencies and fire agencies. And then again, that other update on some of the subscriber unit radios has moved to the ARPA funds for 23 as well. So we have a ton of infrastructure pieces that the comm center uses to work on. And several different multi-million-dollar, multi-year maintenance agreements for all that equipment. Just a quick map of how our comm center is laid out, or how the towers are laid out. Winnebago County owns 4 radio communications towers at those pinpoints in the county. They work in conjunction with the one that's up shown in Outagamie County. There's several in Outagamie County, but that's the main one that they work with. We're in a 30-year agreement with Outagamie County to share that infrastructure and maintain that infrastructure. And again, this is all stuff that Winnebago County has already invested in with our comm center. The last sort of piece that we recently upgraded was all the software that all the police and fire agencies use, and the computer-aided dispatching, as well as the jail records system. That was completed in 2021. That was over a $2 million project, and we are in, again, year 10 of that project's maintenance agreement as well. We upgraded some of the software in the comm center in 2021, and we have maintenance agreements for those pieces too. So we spend a lot of money on technology for Winnebago County and for all of the public safety entities within that county. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about our building. So this is where we sit right now. Our building was built in 2003, and it's 20 years old. And this is the crux of the presentation, is we're working with 20-year-old equipment inside that building. Stuff fails, and that's really where we're at here. Our comm center was designed to be self-contained. It was designed to have room for expansion. To date, we've not had a need for expansion. You know, with the graph that I showed you, our stats are pretty flat, but we do have room for expansion there. It was built with 9 workstations, and we need all 9 workstations replaced. And it's equipment that's 24/7, 365, and I'm not talking about the computers. I'm not talking about the guts of all that radio equipment that we've already all replaced. I'm talking about the consoles that they actually work at. When we built the building in 2003, we were able to build that room within the comm center for about $130,000, and it was part of the original design specs of that building and the original projects. And they were able to do what they call a cold install, right? So you can, as they're building this building, they're building this room up as part of the install. That won't happen when we replace these. We have to do a hot install, a hot swap, to make sure everything remains functional 24/7, 365. So it condenses the pricing just a little bit, because we have to make sure that everything stays active. Our current console warranty expired in 2008. They told us when we bought them in '03 that they had about a 10-year life expectancy, so we can do the math on that. This is my next favorite picture. I love this picture. This is the owner's manual for the stuff that we own right now, and this is what it would look like state of the art when we bought it in 2003. So it was meant to hold a couple monitors, and it really has evolved quite since then. We're talking about the flat surface that the monitors go on, and we're talking about that this needs to be an ergonomic setup, right? The current workstations that we have, I'm gonna just flip ahead. They have 7 monitors right now, and they want an 8th and a 9th monitor. And the stations that we house now absolutely do not support what technology is today. They were cool in 2003, state of the art, but they don't work for 2023 in the future. Just to go back, there's a lot of standards that have to be met. You have to have certain tilt and certain angles for 85% of the population, 85% of the time, all sizes of people, all sizes and shapes of people. So we have to account for all that, knowing that this stuff is being touched 24/7, 365 by any number of employees. So today, again, our stuff is being held together by 2x4s and ratchet straps and stuff that needs to be replaced. The consoles themselves are falling apart. The wiring is old. We had one of our comm center lieutenants was so excited he got some little screws that he found on Amazon that were supposed to fit these, and he was welding them in his basement, and he brought them back in, and they all just fried because they don't work anymore. So the stuff is not what it was 20 years ago, and that's really what the bottom line comes down to, is that it needs to be replaced, and it's time. We've gotten as my husband from the South likes to say, we've gotten the good out of this, and it's time. So we have 9 workstations in the comm center. There's 8 in the main comm center, and there is 1 that sits next to emergency management. And we're able to fit those same 9 workstations back in the original space that we have. We're not talking about moving walls or anything like that. We're just simply replacing what is existing in there. And over the years, Facilities has done a really good job putting stuff together and taking pieces off of one and putting it on the other and trying to keep our main couple that we use most functioning, and then the ones that are like the peripheral sets, the ones that we use the least, completely don't function at all anymore. So the only thing that works on them are the monitors. So we know that there's a rough estimate of about $28,000 per seat, and I checked with the vendor more recently, and they're holding that number right now as for 2023. So we're hopeful the price doesn't go up any further. And that's really the highlight of this presentation. So I don't know if we're supposed to field questions now, or we just present it.
Supervisor Buck.
Done? Okay.
My question was for Director Collard.
Okay.
On this, or something back farther?
Back further.
Okay. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Captain Vindola, will the workstations intended to replace the existing ones be stand-up and sit-down type workstations?
Yes.
The flexible accommodations?
Yes, sir.
I don't know what the technical terms are, but that's basically...
Yeah, there's all these weird little standards. They're not quite OSHA, but they're ADA compliant, and they're ANSI HFES standards. It's engineering stuff, but yes,
Okay. And will the new equipment be able to handle the new 911?
Yes.
NG, or what is
Yep.
that?
The NG 911 stuff, yeah. I mean, this is just the console space, not anything to do with the hardware, the software. So yes, would be designed to house technology.
Now, will they handle the incoming calls from can it get a text from a cell phone?
Yes.
Or will it be able to receive a picture from
Eventually
a cell
it will,
phone?
yep. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be all into the new 911 new guide.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, I think there'll be another software upgrade before we get there, but yes, it'll all be compatible.
Okay, so one of the prime benefit is not only updating, but getting the latest digital technology.
Again, it's just the
Of course,
it's not the software and the hardware, it's just the consoles.
Yeah, by the time you get it installed, they'll already get the next generation off of the assembly.
Maybe.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you. First question I had was answered already because Supervisor Eisen asked about texting. Second, when someone calls from a cell phone, can you locate where they're calling from?
Most of the time, yes. Yes, this
What would-
technology is such in the cell phone companies. The cell phone companies actually have an affirmative obligation to have that data and the GPS within their phones. They actually have to provide, as of 2022, they have to provide a Z access as well. So in addition to X and Y intersection, they have to provide a Z, which is supposed to tell us which floor of a building people are
wow.
on. That's
Okay.
not quite there yet. None of the cell phone companies are quite there, but yes.
So when you say most of the time, it's because some cell phone companies haven't gotten that far?
Right,
It's not
right.
because of some odd situation where you might be?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Bender.
I would just be curious, what's the resale value on them radios? We paid like $10.2 million.
The radios?
Yeah, what would the resale value be now?
So if, they'll work as long as they'll work, and we're actually working with, we'll be working with finance office to see if we could sell them, and if there's any agencies that want to buy them. I honestly don't know. I don't know what somebody would pay for 10-year-old equipment that's out of warranty. I'm not positive on that.
I guess I'd be curious because some of the towns and stuff may not be
Yeah.
able to afford new radios. I mean, not everybody has $2 million to buy radios every 10 years. I would
Right.
think that, if you were a smaller entity, that they're still usable. They're just not.
They are usable for now, and actually we talked about this with some of the fire departments. Now, the fire department radios themselves are different. They've got a anti-static feature in them for firefighting. Those aren't the radios that we have. We don't have any of those. So the fire departments, they could use them, but I don't know if they would want to expose themselves to that static risk thing. But
So
some
would
of
like
the
the highway
smaller,
department be getting new radios then too? Because they got them the last time
Yeah.
when the sheriff's department
Yes.
got them. And I know they worked as a scanner and we could monitor numerous
Yes.
different counties. And so I would think they'd have some value.
yeah, they might. Yep, they might. Mhm.
Okay, I see no other questions, so I thank you, and who's ever
All right,
next?
thank you.
Can you just push the view show button so I can scroll through? My name is Ross Johnson. I'm a lieutenant. I work in the jail. I'm here to talk to you about camera wiring upgrade throughout our facility. So, as Captain Vandola stated, our building was built in 2003. We currently have 101 cameras throughout our entire facility. And on any given day, there's at least one camera that is not working. I presented this to Judiciary a while ago, and I was asked to put some more information in because there were some questions that came up. There's been several camera updates since the sheriff's office was built in 2003. The first being in 2004 and 2005. We added several cameras to the housing units and an additional 8 monitored cells. And the second one was in 2017. We started updating all of our cameras. So all of our cameras throughout the facility were changed to our current camera system, mainly being digital. And that was finished in 2018. In 2019, we added 2 more additional cameras to our lobby. We have several different cameras throughout our facility. Fisheye cameras, multi-sensor cameras, mini dome cameras, and corner cameras. Basically what that means is we can monitor almost every inch of our facility, which is important for people coming in and out of the facility, as well as inmate well-being.
Our inmate population has changed drastically since the building was built in 2003. This is the main area where everything is monitored throughout our facility, the Master Control Center. If you can see on the left, all those little blue screens, those are cameras that aren't working. And then the picture on the right is what runs our camera system. It looks like a big mess because it is. Our cameras currently monitor all the entrances and exits, common areas where inmates may be present, inmate cells, and the exterior of the sheriff's office. So it's not just monitoring inmates within the jail, but also professional visitors, attorneys, anybody coming to see inmates, things like that. Protects us from liability. So in today's culture, everyone's expected, there's always expected to be video. When our cameras are down, we have to explain why there's not video. And this update needs to happen, otherwise there's a potential for them to be down and be down for extended periods of time. We have 17 monitored cells. They observe our most fragile inmates. Like I said, our inmates that we're currently seeing come in on a daily basis are drastically different than those that came in 2003 when this building was built. We use them for inmates with medical or mental health issues. And I have had the pleasure of working when all these cameras went down, and we have to replace that camera use with physical staff, which is something we don't have enough of right now to say, all right, I'm going to send a second person down to that housing unit just to watch inmates on a constant basis. Currently, our camera system is operated by Avigilon 6 software. Avigilon is no longer supporting that software, meaning we can't add any additional cameras to our system. As the sheriff mentioned, if we're going to add cameras from a new building, we can't add that to our current system. It's not allowed. We'd have to remove cameras off of our current, and we actually need to add more cameras as it is. Currently, all of our cameras are run through coax RG6 cabling, and we be replacing with Cat6 cabling. All of our cameras run through Vidutron encoders, meaning all that RG6 cabling goes into the top and it comes out the bottom with Cat6 cabling. The encoders were used to update to the current camera usage for digital cameras, but it's not really how they're meant to be run. They're meant to be run through Cat6 cabling. So points of failure, every camera in our facility has 6 points of failure. Cable comes out of the wall, it's split into an Ethernet cable. The Ethernet cable comes out of the power over Ethernet, which it's needed to run the camera, and then it goes to the camera itself, and then it goes back to the encoder. So each camera, every time it fails, there's 6 points that a tech has to check. It could be the camera, it could be the cabling, it could be the encoder. So it's a lengthy process when cameras go down. The CIP project would replace all of our end-of-life wiring and other components. So what this means if the CIP project goes forward is that it takes out those encoders. There's significantly less points of failure, cable to camera, camera to server. That's it. There's not going to be nine ways that this is hobbled together to work. One camera since 2016, I believe, 16 or 17, the jail inspector has recommended that we add a camera in our facility every year. We can't because of the software. So every year the jail inspector comes in and goes, you guys should put a camera there, and we can't because of the software that we have. We're looking to add 12 additional cameras for monitored cells. Those cells are used to monitor our inmates with mental health issues and or inmates that are withdrawing from opiates, methamphetamine, or have medical issues as well. Those are our high-risk inmates. The reason they're on camera is because they're high-risk inmates, liability issues for the county. In 2022, I expect this to go up. To date, we spent $18,000 in repairs, if they can occur. The CIP project, we're requesting a total of $350,000. We've been told from our vendor to expect a 12 to 15% increase each year that this doesn't happen. And we actually just got another quote for the project to make sure that we were coming in under that $350,000 price tag, and we are. But currently, they can only guarantee it for 30 days because of the cost of labor and everything that goes into this. So basically, the longer we wait, the potential for the price tag on this to go up goes higher. It's expected the project will take 6 to 9 months to complete. And like I said, the pricing can only be guaranteed for 30 days. And that's what I have.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lieutenant, you kept saying, can't add cameras because of software, can't add cameras because of software. Why don't you just increase or upgrade your limited software capacity? So you can add the cameras that your inspectors are telling you to add.
That's built into this project. The software is part of the price of this project.
So what you're projecting is that you will get new software?
That's built into this project, yes.
And will that software allow you to add additional cameras down the road?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see no other questions, so I thank you. That's it. So next we have our Parks Director, Adam Priest.
All right. We're to head outside. We're to head to the west side of the county for the Parks project. I'm just going to give a real brief overview for some of you that may not know of this site or maybe personally visited this site. But we have two nature preserves over in the town of Rushford. It's the Walcott Creek Nature Preserve and then the Walcott Creek Dam. Today we're going to be discussing the Walcott Creek Dam. It's a 26-acre nature preserve. It features, or its main attraction is a fishing pond and the Walcott Creek. Recreational fishing is common there. It's also utilized by the Omro Rushford Fire Department to fill their tanker from the pond. And then Walcott Creek connects, just kind of to give you an overview, I did a bigger picture. That's Rush Lake to the south. And downstream is where the Walcott Dam or Creek Dam is, and then off the map would be the Fox River where it dumps into. It also does have one fishing dock, a single track bike trail, parking, walking trails, and 3 dams. This is just a closer up picture. Just wanted to get you a better idea where this location is. That's State Road Highway 116, and then Highway K is on the north side going east to west there. So that is what's highlighted in red is the Walcott Creek Dam. You can see the pond in the middle. It's about 1.5 acres in size. And then to the north, actually cross State Highway 116 and off the page is the Walcott Creek Nature Preserve as well. Sorry, let me get caught up. All right, so similar to the last couple projects that have been presented, this is more of a maintenance need to continue to upkeep the existing property that we have. We have some challenges at this site, and I'm going to actually go over them visually, and because it's kind of hard to really paint the picture until you see some of it visually. But we have some site challenges, or some challenges at the Walcott Creek Dam. So we have 3 dams at this site, one that goes into the pond, one that goes out of the pond back into the creek, and then one on the spillway side with the creek. Both the upper dam embankments are continually washed out. Since 2017, the embankments have been washed out yearly. Rain events as small as a 2-year rain event are causing erosion damage. If the embankments do wash out completely, we could lose the pond, and then obviously we would lose the ability for the fishing opportunity, and also carp would head upstream to Rush Lake, and then also the ability for the fire department to fill their tanker truck. The dam crossings also, so there's bridges that cross the dams for recreational purposes for the walking trail. Those dam crossings are no longer ADA compliant. They're unsafe to cross. They're in need of replacement and improvement. The amount of trail users have significantly increased. We have a single track bike trail actually out on that site that's been built by volunteers over the years. It's become so popular that there's inadequate access to that single track bike trail. There was a plan at one point to put a parking lot on Highway K, which is in this plan. And then with increased usage of parking lot lighting and it would be beneficial from a security standpoint. Just kind of a real brief history. In 2017, just kind of some of the things that we've been working on with the site over the last couple of years. This isn't something that's just come up. It's been in the capital improvement plan for a little while now. In 2017, the highway department tried to repair the dam embankments. You can see that on the upper picture. Some of that, especially on the northern dam, the one that goes back into the creek from the pond, is still in pretty good shape. But what you'll notice is the southern dams and the embankments, a lot of those stone are completely gone and completely washed out. 2019, staff put together a report on the condition of the Walcott Dam and what our opinion was on what needed to be done with the dam. But then in 2021, the Parks Department hired MSA, which is an engineering firm that specializes in a lot of these types of projects, to complete a master plan of the site. MSA also is an engineering firm that worked on Lake Delton when that washed out. So they have a lot of, obviously a much bigger scale, but they have a lot of similar experience. The county board then approved a hydraulics analysis study in November of last year, 2021. The goal of the study was to determine if the dams could be adjusted. What we originally thought is that we could adjust the stop logs of the dams to adjust the flow going into the pond versus what goes into the river. The problem is, or the creek. The problem is that it's also the entire property is in a floodplain. So we can't adjust the floodplain by even a tenth of an inch. So that creates an obstacle as well that we're working with, and hence why we had to do the hydraulics analysis study. So the goal was to determine to see if the dams could be adjusted to help during these heavy rain events to prevent erosion issues. 2022, they completed their analysis, and they determined that there was nothing that could be done with the dams. And the biggest reason, I'm going to go back, the biggest reason is up here where the creek crosses Highway 116. Ooh, cool. All right. Right here where the creek crosses 116 is the bridge, and it's only so wide and only so narrow. We can't adjust that width of that entry. So basically anything we do to this dam, or this dam doesn't do anything because of up here and how the flow is affected up at the down on the downstream side. The other piece of it is you can see the property here, and we're within the floodplain. We cannot affect any properties outside of our property as well. So you can see the dams here, there's not much space between our dam and then the next property. So those are all the different things that we are working with as we look through this project. So basically, MSA's recommendation is to basically alleviate the maintenance concerns we have. And I'll show you some video and pictures here in a moment of some of the maintenance issues that we deal with and how we could potentially lose the pond in the future. But they advise us to basically utilize an armor type. The flex armor is just one type of material. You can actually see it here and here. It's a flexible concrete. Grass can grow through it, so it's still a nature preserve. We still want it to look nice in the end, and we want it to grow in. But the flex armor, instead of having just riprap, which is what those larger stone are that we've installed in the past, this is more of a matting that's all connected, and it's not going to just wash out one or two stones. It's all connected together, so it's going to hold the embankment. I just have a few pictures for those of you, and I know it might be hard to see from there. I could always send these pictures, but These are from the different years. We've had washouts almost every year, sometimes multiple times a year. In 2019, you can see, so this is standing in the parking lot. So this is still the parking lot here. It's kind of hard to see by this picture, but all of this is underwater, and normally none of what's in my laser here is underwater. Here's just the condition in 2019 of the parking lot. It was recently chip sealed by the highway department last year, but a chip seal is usually meant to prolong the life of the asphalt for about 5 or 6 years until you can have it repaved. This is the river or the creek dam, and once again, I apologize for the pictures if you haven't been out there. It's probably hard to visualize, but this is standing on top of the dam. Here's the railing, looking down. This is the spillway. This is the dam where it flows through the dam. You can see this is the fabric from that riprap that's already been washed downstream from 2017 when they installed all that riprap. This is about the Parks Committee took a tour this fall. This is about a 3 to 4 foot drop from that railing. So it's definitely a safety hazard right now. So this would also be armored, and I'll show that more at the end. This is just another picture of washout. You can see we're standing on this dam looking at the other pond dam, and you can see how the water's running over, and that it causes that erosion, whereas if it was covered with the flex armor, it wouldn't erode. So we're gonna hope these videos work. So this was in 2020. What I'm just showing, this is walking down the trail. This is walking to the north on the east end of the pond. And what you're gonna see here is you're going to see this bench. So this is the pond here, and I can't really pause anything, but this is the pond over on the west end here. Here's the bench, and the whole trail is underwater there, and it actually goes down about 6 inches. And you can see how the water is flowing from left to right here. And you'll see, we're actually to walk through it in 2021 when we fast forward to that. But this is, again, in 2020. You can see how the water, this is looking from the other direction, how it's flowing from the pond down to the stream over the embankment. We'll go to 2021 here. So this one shows it the best and we fixed that in 2020. So then in 2021, it showed up again. And here you'll see how it's rushing once again from west to east. And you see how deep, see how it has like all those lines. Those are about 2 to 3 feet deep, and that's basically channels that the water is creating in the embankment to get down to the stream. You can see how fast that water is running. And it creates, it's water, it's going to create its own path, and it washed all that out. So that just gives you a better idea of after a rain event, we were able to get some pictures and video of that. This picture is really just meant to show, I mean, yes, it was after a storm event, just wanted to show how that, you can see it's an unfortunate, I didn't have a closer up picture of it, but the grading, it's an old grading. It's got a lot of divots in it. It has actually, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a depression there. The railing is long past its life, and you can see how it's about 3 or 4 inches. We want to take these approaches and pour concrete so that way it's more ADA compliant. So project goals on that note, we want to fortify the east embankment so that way we can create a natural overflow area. So instead of controlling the dams, we want to create that natural overflow area, which I'll show better in a picture in just a second. Install riprap or heavier riprap in areas that are hit hardest and in more areas than we currently have. We want to continue to prevent the carp from swimming upstream. I apologize, I couldn't find a video, but I have a video of 50 to 100 carp just sitting at the dam trying to jump over it 2 years ago. Go towards Rush Lake. Replace the approaches, the railings, and the catwalks of all 3 dams. Provide better parking on Highway K for the single-track bike trail users. We'll show that too. Install lighting, not lightning, but to provide better site security and enhance the property, providing more fishing docks and repaved trail and shade shelter. So this is the proposal. Over here, this is the single-track bike trail. There's about 3 miles of single-track bike trail in here. It's very popular. This is the pond. This is that, so this would be towards Rush Lake this way, and this would be towards the Fox River this way over Highway 116. So you have the dam, the river dam here, the creek dam here, the first pond dam, the inlet, and then the outlet over here back into the creek. So what we are proposing and doing is this gray area here is Armorflex. This would be actually lower than the rest of the embankment, and it would gradually increase, so it's still ADA compliant. The idea would be when the pond overflows and it's too much for the dam here, it actually naturally overflows over the Armorflex. So that way, and then that way it doesn't create those channels in the embankment. In this green area would be a geogrid. Just imagine like an egg carton. They're thick plastic egg cartons that you basically plant grass in the ground. So that way, once again, it's holding the soil together. And then the parking lot would get repaved, site lighting, which we don't have any lighting out there at this point. The 2 docks, or the 2 fishing piers that I was referring to. And then what I was referring to with the single track bike trail, the technical trailhead is up here. There is a access road into here, but really it's unimproved. It can fit 1 or 2 cars right now. So we want to officially put in an 8-stall parking lot here. The DOT has informed us several times, because what ends up happening is the bikers will park here, they'll ride up the road, and then they'll cut in here, and they're causing erosion on Highway 116. So the DOT wants us also to address that. We have closed that off. We have put caution tape up there. We've tried different things. When you're working with a lot of volunteer groups and a lot of just general public, it's hard to get the word out to everyone. So by engineering a more purposeful parking lot up here, by fixing the crossing, this is the one where it was 3 to 4 feet deep, the bikers will better be able to get to the bike trail over here, or just park right next to the trailhead up on Highway K. The last slide kind of goes over the, this just has all the details. This is from June, July, from that report from the hydraulic analysis, so that's where the numbers are from MSA. The expenses for this year, we would be looking to do this very similar to the Grumman boat landing, and very similar to how Highway does their projects or facilities, where we're engineering 1 year and then building the next year. So in 2023 would be the engineering, the $230,000. And then in 2024 would be the actual construction cost of $1.5 million. The funding sources that we're proposing would be county in 2023, and then in 2024 in 2023 we're going to seek a grant. Now this grant is definitely more competitive than the Grumman boat landing grant that we went with, but there is a grant cycle, the Wisconsin DNR stewardship grant. Applications are due on May 1st of each year. So our goal would be to hit the ground running quickly, get the grant application put together and any engineering needed for the grant application, submit it this year on May 1st, and then typically we find out in September is usually when they're announced. It's a very competitive statewide grant. We do have a very unique project though, so we hope that we would get a grant. It might not be the full 50%, but then that's where we would report back to the board in September as to what that grant amount ended up being. So yeah, that's in a nutshell the Walkout Dam project, and if there's any questions.
Supervisor Swan.
What kind of a fishing resource do you have in that pond right now?
In terms of the type of fish being caught? 'Cause I
Yes.
know every time I go out there, there's definitely fishermen out there.
Has that been impacted by the leakage that you have? And I mean, is it?
It hasn't. Definitely, there's still people fishing out there. Because actually, they fish off the creek and the pond. So either one, there's a trail. Well, it's not on here. There is a trail, just a walking trail where they fish off the creek as well.
Have the carp been able to get up in that pond, and do they get beyond into Rush Lake right now?
No, we have fish stops here and here, so they can't get past those areas.
I'm assuming there's carp already in Rush Lake. Is that a fair assumption?
It's a fair assumption that there's probably some. I know there was an initiative before my time here by the volunteers with Rush Lake to get rid of carp from Rush Lake.
Okay. So
I know by being good neighbors and trying to help them continue to keep it out of there, at least the significant population.
And my last question is, that parking lot off of County K right there, how are you going to keep the safety issue, that, I'm familiar with that intersection right there. That's a blind corner when you drive along County K and look back up 116 to the northeast, and then there's a significant downgrade on 116 coming into Waukah. So, I mean, are you gonna put signage there to, because that entrance right there, it's fairly dangerous right near that interchange like that.
Yeah, we'll need to work with Wisconsin DOT, being that it's their state highway and also the county highway department. But we would also clear trees on this side to make sure that there is visibility, because that's especially where you're talking about around that curve,
Yes.
is we would definitely need to make sure to keep visibility.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I seem to associate Waukah with some form of historic value premise from prior years on the board. Is there some type of historic element involved with this dam or this project?
I know when I've looked through my research, and I apologize, Supervisor Eisen, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I do know that there is some historical documents in our shared files, the county shared files, in regards to Waukah Creek and or Waukah Dam, but I think it's more the Waukah Creek area to the north.
Is that closer to Amro?
No, it's, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong map, I'm looking the wrong way. It's just over, there's less than a mile to the north.
Okay, well, then I'm off base there. But the other question I have is the water flow from this dam controllable? Like in Menasha, you've got a dam and you've got water, and you can open up the flow, and the Corps of Engineers says you can, raise the level of Lake Winnebago or lower it. Is this an adjustable dam?
Well, and so that's what we looked at in the hydraulic analysis study, and what we found, the most we could adjust, and I apologize, I was looking for the exact amount, but it was here we go. Basically, by working with the dams and not affecting the floodplain, and that's part of the key too. We can't affect the floodplain, and we can't affect our neighbors to the north or south. We can adjust it to basically adjust 0.2 feet. So not by much.
Okay, so it's not a similar dam to the ones that are controlling Lake Winnebago.
Right.
Flow in and out.
Yeah, those are
Okay.
definitely different scale.
Okay, yeah. It's just basically channeling the rainfall or the runoff in the channel.
Correct.
Thank you.
Supervisor Eisen, you might have heard about the Waukah Indians that come usually for the parade during the summer there for Waukah Youth Days. There's a regular Waukah Indian group that actually comes and performs there, so that might be what you're thinking of. That's
I guess.
That's where they come from at one time, yes.
Historic value to some people.
Supervisor Ponzer.
I didn't hit my button.
No. We all heard that, but go ahead.
I packed it away a little too soon.
Supervisor Ponzer?
No, I packed my thing up too soon.
Okay. Supervisor Albrecht.
I think what Paul was referring to years ago, they had a big deal about the Rush Lake, the dam on Rush Lake, and Senator Pete Dry, or Congressman Pete Dry was out there for the opening, and a big deal with Ducks Unlimited, but that was a big historic event.
That they did.
And then I have another question of the Parks Director. What's the new building going on out by the carp pond by the Asylum Bay?
That is the DNR, so they're tearing down that old one, the old storage building that isn't being used, and so they're building that first and then tearing down the other one.
Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How are you going to get that parking lot in on, what is it, County Road K? There's a county code that requires a driveway access of at least 600 feet from an intersection. You're nowhere, you're at about 120 feet.
We'll have
That-
to, I apologize, I can't answer that at this point. I'll have to talk with the highway commissioner then and take a look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I
there's
mean,
an existing one there.
Because it is existing, so I don't know if it was grandfather, but I'd have to, I can check.
But still to improve that with a driveway that doesn't meet current code it's just not a good idea.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for Director Collard. And it is in regards to two things. The first one, though, when you go to the eliminated section on page 59, I saw something that really caught my eye, and that was in regards to the mold remediation project at the Highway Department. Why did we decide, or sorry, in the eliminated, sorry, the removed section on page 61, why did we decide to remove that this year? That seems like a pretty pressing project.
Can we finish up on the parks here first?
Sure,
And then we can
yeah.
go back to you. Anyone else have anything on parks? Not? I thank you very much. Now I'll go back to Supervisor Flom.
So I have two questions. The first one is about the mold remediation project at the highway. Seems like a pretty big deal. The current setup doesn't seem like it's built for the long term. So if there's a reason why it was removed, or if it's being funded in a different manner this year, or in regards to it, I was just wondering why it was taken out.
Yes, if you look at page 4, the 2023 projects that were included, there is a line, it's the second to the last of the highway projects. It says Highway Department Office and Shop Modernization. The total funding for that, $2.8 million in 2023, $2.5 million in future years total. That project encompasses the mold remediation.
Okay.
So it's a much larger project, also encompassing a remodeling of the highway shop, expansion of some of the garages to allow them to accommodate the larger plows and the wings and so forth, as well as rebuilding the highway shop, which will take care of the mold remediation.
Okay.
So that's kind of highlighted in case that's too rich for the board, and especially as an alternative for the UWO Fox Cities, if that's going to be included, that if that project is taken out, then the $600,000 for the mold remediation would be put back in.
It could be a standalone project on its own.
Yes.
Okay. The next question I have is in regards to the ARPA funding, and I see here you have it all laid out. You explained to me a couple of weeks ago in an email that the split for the Spirit Fund was, or at least the proposed split was 25, 50, 25. 25 for nonprofits, 50 for county projects that impact the community, and 25 for internal improvements. Is there some way in the future, and I guess maybe it's just naivety from me, where we could label those to say kind of what pot they're in and what breakdown they're in, or is that just a guideline and not anything that we have to adhere to?
Well, I think yes to both. They are a guideline established by the ARPA Commission. But it's, in the final analysis, the board's decision how to spend the money. So those guidelines aren't binding on the board, but advisory. Just the same, we certainly can provide the board, when it comes time to vote on those projects, with a breakdown of how that allocation is going and what pot of money that scene is coming from.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Supervisor Swan.
So will the highway department be presenting on this facilities upgrade in the next meeting?
February should be.
Yes.
Right, so I guess I'll pull the questions I would have had on that for now, but with regard to the highlighting of these two projects, UW Fox, I'm on the board of trustees for UW Fox City, so I'm familiar with this project that we've been talking about for years now up there. And to highlight that up against the highway department project sort of, to me, steers us as a board into an either-or decision on that when maybe we really shouldn't be looking at it that way. Obviously, the highway department upgrade is important because of the mold issue, the building issue, because of the mold issue. But so is the UW Fox Cities upgrade. I mean, that, our primary objective and our primary focus as a county is to keep those, the property, the buildings up, to, you know, to maintain the facilities, not to really focus on a lot of other issues that have been brought to bear to sort of put roadblocks in that project, like enrollment and you know, that discussion that seems to be becoming more of an issue, as well as other things. But basically, this is an important project, and our focus needs to be on keeping up a property whether UW occupies that facility or not. Let's say they weren't in there. We'd still have to deal with the marketing of that facility to somebody else. And sometimes you have to spend money in order to get money back. I have one other question, and that is, did we pay any money to acquire UW Fox Cities campus?
I don't know. I have a very old agreement in my files. It's been quite a few years, so we can investigate that. But I don't honestly know the answer now.
Right, so if we, let's say we didn't pay any money for that facility, we stand to receive a significant windfall if we were ever required to market it. Say it was vacated and we needed to market it. My view is that by upgrading that kitchen and commons area, you're going to be much more, it'll be much more easy to market and more marketable to another institution than if it wasn't upgraded.
They will be here also in February if you want to talk about that.
Okay, I'll let that go. I'm just saying, my focus here was the highlighting, and I don't want us to get focused in on that highlighting of between these two projects that we don't look at some of the other projects that could be put on hold, like highway resurfacing and roads maybe out in the rural areas that don't have a lot of traffic counts or something like that.
Yeah, the board could certainly decide to include both of those highlighted projects or neither, and we're just trying to provide the board with options to consider, in part because we're concerned that Outagamie County may decline the funding, which would present us with another problem.
They did approve it in their budget.
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, for us, if we stay with this and stay strong on it as something that needs to be done, Outagamie County is more apt to be persuaded to stay with it also. If we abandon it, they're going to abandon it, is all I'm saying here. We need to consider carefully that our job is to upkeep the asset, whether UWO is there long-term or not. Thank you.
Supervisor Stara.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if it's possible, but when we had the Parks presentation, executive had his hand up, and I was curious to hear what he had to say, if you permitted.
Who?
Executive Damel.
I don't know what you would have to say, but,
I was curious if that would be possible to hear.
well, we usually don't, but if he makes it quick, everybody's getting tired.
Okay, thank you.
No, sorry, I don't think, and it had nothing to do with parks.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank
I
you.
didn't think he did. Okay. Supervisor Bender.
Just a comment, you know, Dr. Topol stood up here 2 months ago and told us they're gonna be turning back over $3 million this year. So there will be plenty of money in the reserve to fund both of these projects. And the county board, that's our decision, not anybody else's. If we wanna fund 12 million, or we can take $2.5 million out of the reserves. Dr. Topol told us he's gonna turn 3 million back in. And Outagamie County is gonna go ahead with this project. We sent the letter to the boards of regencies. We're asking for a guarantee that this campus is going to stay intact for at least 5 years. They have every intention of moving forward with this. They passed it in their budget. They did take out buying that house, but other than that, their projects are funded for 2023. And if you sit on that board of trustees, I get so sick of hearing them tell us we cost them a lot of money because we always drag our feet. We don't fund the projects. It's 8, 9, 10 months down the road. The costs just keep going up. So we can either fund the $12.5 million this year at a more reasonable price, so we're gonna fund the extra $2.5 million in 2024, and we can leave that $2.5 million sit in the reserve fund and maybe get 1% or 2% in interest, but I can guarantee you, just like the sheriff's department told us, everything continues to go up, and you can expect to spend 10 or 15% more on the project if we don't approve it this year for the cameras, and I'm sure it'll be the same for the cafeteria. So we can approve all of this because we heard Dr. Topol tell us he's gonna turn $3 million back to the reserve fund.
Yes. Just hold on. Supervisor Gabbard.
My questions are for you, Mike. The ARPA items that you have, since you're my ARPA expert, do we have to bid those projects? Is there a rule that says they have to be bid? The reason I'm asking is
What they are.
because there's an item for the airport. So my question leads to this. Do we have to bid it? And if we don't, then we can negotiate with a company to see if we could get a discount to save some money off of that?
Well, the bidding requirement would apply to anything that's a public works project as that's defined in the statutes.
So
the airport one, to buy a vehicle, that would not normally be a public work and would not
Okay.
be subject to the bidding requirement, just to our own county purchasing policies.
Okay. And then when, on the other section for the airport, whenever there's county and other funding, just so everybody knows that other funding could be grants from BOA or FAA for the airport. So it's not necessarily going to be a bond issue for anything out there. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Not seeing anyone else, I'm open for adjournment. Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Adjourned.